We are live here on Angomania. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today it is March 28th, 2023, and we're going to be talking about WWE NXT tonight. Let's take a look at our chat. Super curious to see who's here tonight. I know we saw Albert Ponce in the chat. We got Robin Plays Games, Jedi, D Anarchy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Killa Boy, Axel, Cedric, Justin, Negla K. What's up, everybody? I love seeing the usual in here. Guys, what a show. NXT was pretty solid tonight. There were some things I didn't like, obviously, but there were some things I did like. And, you know, today we got the debut of Carl Fredericks, which was pretty big. I like what they're going to do with Eddie Thorpe. So we'll definitely talk about that. A lot of things going on, a lot of things to talk about. As always, if you guys want to weigh in the conversation, make sure you guys are using the chat. The more you guys use the chat, the more it makes these live streams easier, because my shows are interactive. I see a lot of other wrestling review shows, and all they do is talk, and that's great, but I don't want to just talk. I'm going to give you guys my opinions on the show, but of course, I want to talk to you guys and look at your comments and interact with you guys in your takes and your opinions and all of that good stuff. Plus, it's Angomania week, baby, so you know it's a big week for pro wrestling. I'll be live throughout the week. Raw, NXT, AEW, ROH, SmackDown, Impact and NJPW, NXT TakeOver. I mean, literally, there's so many incredible things going down in the world of wrestling, plus Stand and Deliver, so we'll be talking about it. Guys, today's stream is sponsored by StreamMusic.gg. Make sure you check out StreamMusic.gg if you guys want to use music for your content, or maybe you just want to listen to some good-ass music. Me and my friends, Tony Pizza Guy and Jared, have created a really cool music service, and it's completely free, so check it out. Shout out to Real Take Wrestling, already dropping a super chat, $4.99. Real Take Wrestling says, love Angomania running wild. Thanks for the inspiration and constant support, brother. No, thank you, bro. You're doing a hell of a job. Honestly, just keep up the good work. Within time, you'll keep growing. You're going to keep doing good things. Real Take Sports, Real Take Wrestling. Shout out to you, Omer. We got to talk. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, buddy. So make sure you hit my line. Thank you for the super chat, $4.99 from Real Take Wrestling. Shout out to him. Check out his channel if you haven't seen it. Guys, NXT was pretty damn solid, and obviously we'll talk about it today. First and foremost, I feel like NXT still has the cringy frickin' segments, and I don't know why they keep doing the cringy segments, but that is something I'm going to give a gripe about. It's something I'm going to be negative about. Quite honestly, it is quite annoying to see that WWE NXT still has these cringy ass segments. I think they have the right idea, but it's nuts. And you know what? It's just unbelievable at this point that WWE, I don't know if they need acting classes. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I'm looking at promos in NXT and I like the booking. I like some of the things that they're doing, but I listen to these promos or these backstage segments and the way that they're talking, it just feels so forced. It looks like they're trying to make a freaking Disney show out of it. I was looking at Roxanne Perez and Shawn Michaels the entire time, and quite honestly, I could not stand. Like, I love both of them, and I think Roxanne's incredibly cool, but, like, she's just having a serious conversation about her anxiety. It shouldn't feel like this forced thing, and that's not her fault. This is WWE's fault, in my opinion, and it just sucks that it's like that because I think she's so incredibly talented. I don't want to see her do that. You know, and I think that's the thing with wrestling. It's not just a WWE thing, but everybody in wrestling, when they're cutting a promo, it just sounds like they're talking in like this really serious manner. I just want them to talk like a normal human being. And yeah, it's definitely a conversation point for tonight. WWE obviously building the Stand and Deliver. I think they've done a really good job of that. So props to WWE for doing so. Stand and Deliver is going to have a really, really big time match, and we're talking about the North American Championship. So if you guys didn't watch, tonight there was a 20-man battle royal to crown the 5th member of the Fatal 5-Way North American Championship match at Stand and Deliver. Holy shit, when I tell you guys how good this battle royal is, I don't know where WWE got this impression or got this idea that they were going to start having battle royals or Royal Rumbles actually like amount to something good, but we saw in the Royal Rumble Cody and Gunther wrestled as if it was a singles match. Tonight we saw the same exact thing happen, maybe a little bit lesser in terms of time duration, but we saw Nathan Frazier and Axiom wrestle And guys, these guys are magical in the ring, right? We've seen this time and time again in WWE. But Axiom ended up beating Nathan Frazier. And holy shit, when I tell you guys how good this Battle Royal is, I am not joking when I tell you it is phenomenal. And this is the stuff that I like about NXT. It's like a really good flow. It's a really good feeling that WWE has managed to get some really good wrestling in there while still doing a callback to a previous feud. Meanwhile, that Battle Royal, I think they did a really good job of actually setting up programs. It looks like Dijak and Odyssey Jones are going to be a storyline, so that's something to pay attention to. There's obviously a lot of things happening in that match with Apollo Crews and Dabba-Kato, so that gets me intrigued. Overall, in general, I just feel like they did actually a really good job of this Battle Royal. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, this actually gets me more excited to see what happens when they do the Battle Royal for Andre the Giant Memorial on SmackDown. Because if WWE keeps up this trend where, like, the final 2 or the final 3, it's basically watching a singles match or a triple threat match, I am so for it. The spots, the back and forth, and Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I mean, just 2 really talented people, guys. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They're 2 incredibly talented people. They absolutely delivered in this situation. I was super happy to see the way it went down. And that just kind of set the tone that tonight's show was going to be a good one. And keep in mind, like, this is one of those things where it just naturally was good. You know what I mean? Shout out to Cameron Johnson. Thanks for stopping by, bro. What's up, everybody? A lot of people in the chat coming through. Curtis Lee, thanks for stopping by. Jasu Rivera. Hey, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, $2 super chat from Jasu Rivera. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yes, I agree with your super chat. It really was awesome. It just kind of goes to show you that the North American Championship at Stand and Deliver is probably going to be one of the best matches of this entire week. Okay? The other match, there's 2 other matches. From the main roster, I expect Gunther, Drew McIntyre, and Sheamus to be absolutely incredible. And then when it comes to Ring of Honor, I definitely expect really good things from Vikingo and, of course, Commander. They're not signed to ROH, but that one should be a banger. And then, yes, this North American Championship Fatal 5-Way is going to be amazing. So, Jasu Rivera, yes, it was awesome. To be honest, I'll actually correct that. It was incredible. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch NXT if you have it on DVR. That Battle Royal was really, really good. The fact that it opened up the show, just everything about it seemed to have worked really well. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of nervous, like, what they would do with Axiom. I was kind of nervous what they would do with Nathan Frazier. And some of these guys where maybe they don't have, like, the greatest characters, or personalities, but they're talented and they can cut a promo, but, like, there's got to be something to them. WWE NXT has figured out a way to get them to mesh very well on TV. North American Championship match, I'm just going to make it very, very clear that this Stand and Deliver Championship, North American Championship match, I mean, like, this event, it's a loaded card, but this match right here, I'm hoping that Dragon Lee wins. By the way, it's still a little surreal seeing Dragon Lee on NXT shaking hands and everybody's in the ring and they're building it up. To me, that's the match to watch. I think Dragon Lee is the guy to win. I hope, at the very least, that Dragon Lee wins that match. But that's going to slap. That match is going to slap. Shout out to Albert Ponce for dropping a super chat. Yeah. $5 super chat. The triple threat match for the IC title and the 5-way for the North American title are my matches to steal the weekend. I have Dragon Lee and Sheamus winning. Buddy, you took the words out of my mouth. Tomorrow, by the way, if you guys don't know, I'll be doing WrestleMania predictions with Joshua Gresham, host of Gresh Unleashed. Really, really dope. We've had him on the channel before. And you know what? I'm going to be talking and predicting WrestleMania. Sheamus is my pick. That's because I think Gunther's winning Money in the Bank. I'll allude more to that tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern time, okay? Come through for the predictions. But yes, Sheamus winning that, Dragon Lee winning the North American title. It has to happen. If WWE has Dragon Lee win the North American Championship, they are starting things off with a bang. That's really what it comes down to. The North American Championship going into the hands of Dragon Lee is something I absolutely think should happen. and I am super excited about that. Just the idea in my mind of watching Dragon Lee, Wes Lee, all of these guys, they are so good at wrestling. It's going to be really cool. Okay, it's going to be really cool. Albert Ponce, thank you for the $5 super chat. Appreciate you, bro. In just a few minutes, I'm going to get you on a call as well. A lot of people in the chat popping off, want to read some of these things. Yeah, we're going to definitely get Albert on the call for sure. If Albert wants to be on the call, let me make sure he wants to be on the call. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to keep up with the chat. You guys are so... I ask you guys to go off in the chat, and you guys are great. You guys are really going off in the chat, so I appreciate that. Let's see. A lot of people going off. Oh, cool. I'm going to have Jonathan Gresham's brother on. Cool. No. Come on, let's not spread fake news. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's like a really, really cool thing, though. I'm super geeked about. I'm super geeked about that. Shout out to Jason Martinez for a super chat. Yeah, $3 super chat. Good luck, Ango. Very good presentation. Next level. Fire emoji. Jason Martinez, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for showing support. Thank you for showing love, guys. It's Ango Mania. It's WrestleMania week. Big shows. Obviously, tonight was all about NXT. We talked about the North American Championship. Let's talk about the women. Indy Hartwell is going to be in the ladder match for the Women's Championship. Roxanne Perez has returned to the company. They did a storyline, and I kind of alluded to it earlier in the show about the bad acting in the background, which sucks because I love Roxanne, and I really do like Shawn Michaels, but this segment was so weird. And it's not even like it's a bad segment. It just seems like WWE is forcing these promos, and it's like, you don't have to do that, bro. Talk like a freaking human. Literally, that's all I'm asking for, is just talk like a normal human. But Roxanne Perez is back. She says that she battled with anxiety. She was dehydrated. That was the reason for her collapse. Obviously, this is all storyline. But I want to let you guys know firsthand that because I've seen some people on Twitter question the validity of Roxanne Perez's claims of having mental health issues. She did do an interview in late 2022 in December, and she actually did talk about her mental health and anxiety issues. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this is a real life storyline implemented into the program, which I think is classy. You know, I think it's a good thing to do if you're WWE, because they're not faking an anxiety issue. Like, clearly she's on record for saying that she has issues with anxiety and mental health. So if you're going to put it on TV and something that she actually deals with, I think it brings attention to it and it can help people out. In my opinion, the segment, the concept wasn't bad. I just thought the delivery of the lines was bad. But also, it's just something in WWE. It's just something overall that they need to work on in NXT. Some people are really, really good at not forcing their lines. Some people are forcing their lines. Again, I don't even think this is directly a Roxanne issue, because I think she's one of the best women in the industry. Not just WWE, but in the industry, I think she's one of the best. I think you could even take out gender from it and literally just say she's just one of the best. She's really, really skilled. She's one of the best prospects. She's got a very bright future, but she's back. Indy Hartwell wins this match against Ivy Nile. Both of them will be in the ladder match. I'm curious to see which way WWE goes with the NXT women's ladder match for the championship. Roxanne's defending her title. In this situation, I feel like it would be really cool to have somebody new win it. I've also read a couple things that people have sent to me on Twitter or Discord, but there are some rumors that maybe Roxanne Perez joins Damage Control, which would be a really interesting move from WWE to call her up so quickly, but it is something that would freshen up the main roster. It would be really interesting to see her go as a heel. It would be really cool to see her work with Bayley. It would be really cool to see her work with Io Sky and Dakota Kai. That is something to definitely pay attention to. That is something I've noticed, throughout time. Whenever these rumors pop up, more than likely these types of things don't happen. But if it does happen, it would be really cool. I want to see who wins this match. I think they're trying to turn this into something where Roxanne wins. It's the ultimate babyface move. She wins after having panic attacks and anxiety and things like that. She's going to win the ladder match. She's going to overcome her mental health problems. It's just the ultimate babyface move. I think that's the route that WWE is going to go. Just like really, really interesting to see how they go about that. Give me 1 second. I didn't realize I moved this all the way up here. My apologies. Okay, so yeah, overall, the women's match, the ladder match, that's something I'm definitely thinking about. It's something I definitely want to see how it progresses, but obviously will take some time to kind of, it'll take some time to really see what the vision is. I feel like they've kind of, I think they're kind of working on something, but when's the payoff? I guess that's a real question. A lot of people in the chat, I'm trying to get to some stuff too while I'm talking in between. Jacoby Peter says, sup, Ango, how do you feel about Eddy Thorpe? I think this is actually a perfect segue. Eddy Thorpe is sick. Carl Frederick making his debut tonight. Eddy Thorpe, that's the name. I seen him obviously on NXT Level Up. I like the presentation. I like the entrance. I like the gear. I like pretty much everything that they're doing with Eddy Thorpe. Not a very long match, not a very quick match. It was just perfectly timed. I feel like this guy is going to be good in WWE. My fear, and with WWE, and you guys can tell me what you think, but my fear is that like some of these guys are going to be used as veterans and just putting over other people. Like the whole thing with Dijak, right? Like Dijak's a veteran. He could be a world champion right now. But now he's setting up a feud with Odyssey Jones. It's just kind of weird. Eddy Thorpe, I hope he's not used in the capacity where he's just putting over other talent. Like I hope they kind of just put him in the mix right away. Clearly, Dragon Lee is the guy that they think should be North American champion because he's in that match. Eddy Thorpe isn't. I thought it would have been a better idea to have Eddy Thorpe and Dragon Lee both in that match because if it's a multi-man match at Stand and Deliver, it justifies one of them losing. But that's going to be a really interesting move in general. Like putting Eddy Thorpe in these like squash matches. I think, what was the name of the guy he versed? Dylan Miles or Dylan Bourne or something like that. Miles Bourne, Mason Bourne. I don't know. It was some, I can't remember the name. But yeah, Carl Frederick is in NXT. He looked good in my opinion. Like I think he looked good. It's cool. I think a lot of people are going to look at Carl Frederick and they're going to look specifically at his debut and his push and what happens on TV. And a lot of people are going to use that as the measuring stick before jumping ship to WWE. Because here's the thing. There's going to be some talent out there that exists. And I'm going to just shoot straight with you guys, right? Like there's going to be some talent that exists out there. Maybe they're in New Japan. Maybe they're in the Indies. Maybe they're in AEW. And they're going to look at Eddy Thorpe. They're going to look at that and say, hey, like this is a guy that was offered NXT and this is what they did with him. Unless you're somebody with a massive name like Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay or maybe even Jay White, like you're probably going straight to the main roster. But if you're somebody who is, an international talent or you're a pretty big name on the indies and they offer you NXT, yeah, you're definitely paying attention to the way WWE books Carl Frederick. Like Carl Fredericks is like, they're going to be putting him in a, like, they're going to be putting him in a situation where people are going to be glued to the screen because they're going to want to see what happens. Does this guy get pushed? Does he get buried? Is he losing matches? What's his presentation like? Because obviously we already saw that he got the name change and all of those different things. So yeah, it's just, you got to remember, like, what they do with Eddy Thorpe is going to be a real awakening for talent outside of WWE. And I can't stress the importance of this. Like, if you're a talent in New Japan, if you're a talent in AEW, and your name isn't Kenny Omega, your name isn't Jay White, right? And WWE offers you NXT, you're looking at Eddy Thorpe's booking, you're looking at his presentation, you're looking at everything collectively and seeing what WWE does with him. Because that's probably going to be the method that they use going forward when developing new signings, moving them to NXT. And how they book them is really important because some people might not want to get repackaged. Some people might not want a new gimmick, This is something to definitely pay attention to, but I do look forward to seeing what WWE does here. I thought Eddy Thorpe looked great in his debut, and most importantly, WWE's in a situation. They got Dragon Lee, they got Eddy Thorpe, they got Ilya Dragunov, they got JD McDonough. Like, they got all of these guys who are great wrestlers, and then you also have some superstars in NXT that are really good for characters. I feel like we're starting to see a little bit of the black and gold, a little bit of NXT UK, and then NXT 2.0 all in one brand. Hopefully, WWE can tidy it up to improve it all around, because it definitely needs some improvements. But this is something to definitely pay attention to for sure. Don't forget, guys, if you're not using the hashtag, if you guys have Twitter, use the hashtag TASLive. Make sure you tweet me, TASLive. I'm going to read some of your tweets as well, people in the live chat. I'm looking at Twitter. If you guys want to show some love on Twitter, definitely. Hey, I don't know. Maybe one day we'll get TASLive trending, right? Let's see. Yeah, Negla K makes a good point. It's like AEW talents are watching how WWE treats Cody. That's a perfect example, too. Perfect example. What's up, Jose Roche? Thanks for, watching from Rhode Island. Thank you. I appreciate that. I wonder if Ospreay looks at NXT at all. I mean, is there anyone on Ospreay's level down there? Definitely. Definitely. Let's see. What's up, big boy Bargo? Where are you guys all from? Drop your cities in the chat. Let me see where you guys are all from. Let's see. Ooh, Nate says, what will steal the weekend? That's a great question. Are you talking specifically WWE? What, I need you to elaborate, Nate. Are we talking specifically WWE or what? Let's see. Anything? Okay, that's a good question. So what will steal the show? I mean, what will steal the weekend? I mean, man, we're already in for such a treat. Some of the stuff we've already seen yesterday and today. I think AEW will have a pretty nice show tomorrow. I think Thursday, Tanahashi versus Speedball, Mike Bailey. God, I cannot wait to talk about that. That is going to be an incredible match. Speedball, Mike Bailey versus Tanahashi. It was supposed to originally be Ospreay, but he's injured. But Tanahashi is a freaking wonderful replacement. So that will be really cool. I think Dominic and Rey Mysterio will be amazing. I'm not sleeping on Omos and Lesnar. I guess the real answer to that question will come tomorrow at 12 noon when I will be live for the pay-per-view prediction show, which, by the way, if you guys are not familiar, I am doing a prediction show tomorrow, and I'm super excited about it. Guys, right here, these are the details. I'll be live with Gresh at 12 noon Eastern. So we're going to be predicting WrestleMania. I'll tell you guys everything I'm looking forward to. Make sure you guys stop by for that. If you're not familiar with my channel, maybe you're new here, maybe you're a new sub, feel free to come through. I'm going to be reviewing, predicting. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff this week. It's going to be massive. But I think there's a lot of things that could steal a show. I think Vikingo and Commander can be a really great match at Supercard of Honor. I think Samoa Joe versus Mark Briscoe is something that's really exciting. I think Stand and Deliver has a couple sleepers, man. Bron Breakker for sure against Carmelo Hayes has a lot of potential. You can't pick one match when there's so many great matches that are being booked. Honestly, like that's just how I feel. I feel like this week it's probably the best lineup of matches and storylines and wrestling altogether. So that is something extremely exciting to see how that all pans out. Albert Ponce just threw it in the chat. Reach for the Sky match. I think that's a really good point as well. Grayson Waller and Gargano is getting slept on heavy. Big MGM. Very, very factual on that, by the way, because right now, I mean, as you guys saw tonight on NXT, it's effective. The way that they ended NXT, they pretty much just had they pretty much had Johnny Gargano be a cameraman. He attacked Grayson Waller. The contract was signed. It's all set. Signed and delivered. For Stand and Deliver. The Gargano feud with Waller, it's a nice callback. It's a nice historical thing that they're doing. I want to see what that all turns into. You know what I mean? I don't know what it's going to turn into, but I can't wait to see what it turns into. Does Johnny Gargano do the job? Does Grayson Waller do the job? I mean, I think when you really look at that match, I think you really got to look at it and say, do you risk having Johnny Gargano look weak while he's on the main roster? Because I think Grayson Waller could rebound from a loss. You know what I mean? I think so, at least. Rick Corella says, ever consider going live during WrestleMania watch-along? I mean, I've considered it, to be honest with you. I don't know how I feel about doing watch-alongs. I could, if you guys want me to. If you guys want me to do a WrestleMania watch-along, I'll do a WrestleMania watch-along. I have no problem with it. That's up to you guys. That is seriously up to you guys. If you guys want me to do a WrestleMania watch-along, I'll be happy to do one. I'll let you guys, I'll do a post right here. I'll do a poll. How do I do it? Let me see. WrestleMania watch-along. I've never done a WrestleMania watch-along. So I'll let you guys vote in the poll. That's up to you. But you guys got to show up. You know what I mean? You guys got to show up. I've never done a watch-along. And I won't lie to you guys. Like, I want to watch the show and enjoy it. So obviously it's more enjoyable if there's more viewers hanging out with me and we're talking and chatting. If we're chatting, yeah, for sure. Like, if you guys are interacting in the chat, it makes sense for me to do it. Because then we could just live react to it. You know what I mean? Albert says Seth versus Logan is my sleeper pick. That's another one that could be huge. Kind of going back to NXT though. NXT tonight, I just feel like they've done a really good job of just setting the excitement for Stand and Deliver. Even the stuff with Schism, by the way. I don't know. Schism and Chase U. I see a lot of people in Discord, they're kind of freaking out about Tyler Bate. Guys, all they needed was somebody to be in the ring with Tyler Bate. Or, I'm sorry, they needed something to happen for Tyler Bate to be involved in the pay-per-view. Let me correct myself. Schism outnumbers Chase U. Clearly, the story is Duke Hudson turning bad, right? With him turning heel, they need a good babyface to be in that match. It's a one-off, more than likely type of thing. It's fine. I think it works. Duke Hudson turning on Chase University. It's going to be a big, big moment. I think you got to have him beat the hell out of Tyler Bate. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to go about it, but it's something to definitely pay attention to. But I thought tonight was a good way of getting Schism, like, some traction. And don't forget, we're going to be looking at Ava Raine, a.k.a. Simone Johnson, the daughter of The Rock. She's going to be wrestling for the first time. She's confident with the promo. She's confident in the segments. Maybe she's a good wrestler. I hope she is, right? Simone Johnson, like, realistically, the pressure that Simone Johnson is going to have in WWE, it can't be underestimated. It can't be understated how much pressure she's going to have in WWE. Like, as a performer, she is going to have a lot of pressure, but she's with Schism. Her confidence is there. She definitely fits in well with Schism. They for some odd reason, it just works. I don't know why, but it does. They're going up against Chase University. Schism needs the win. They're probably going to win. Duke Hudson's probably going to turn on Chase University. That's why Tyler Bate is there. He's the baby face. It's going to help result in the pop and the heat for the moment and everything. But really what it comes down to is Simone Johnson is going to be put to the test. And she's the daughter of The Rock. And, you know, I can't imagine being the son or daughter of one of the biggest wrestling names of all time and the amount of pressure that comes with that. And that's why I'm so glad that WWE and Simone Johnson decided to stay away from the name Johnson, right? Ava Rain, it works. I'm super intrigued to see how they go about this. I don't know what their plan is, obviously, but if she can deliver a pretty decent wrestling match, I mean, who knows what she's going to show the world, but if she shows the world something huge, that right there, my friends, is going to be her ticket to a very lengthy career in WWE. And that's a good thing. Let's see. Where's my live chat? Oh, there it is. Let me hide that. Oh, some people don't want me to do a watch along. Yikes. Yikes. Am I going live for ROH? Yes, I am definitely going live for ROH. Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor. The way that it works, it's going to be like last year. It's going to be a long stream. I'll do Ring of Honor, SmackDown, and whatever other show is that Friday night. Keep in mind, Supercard of Honor starts at 7. SmackDown ends or starts at 8. So just kind of pay attention to that, I guess. We'll see how that all goes.
Feed me more.
Shout out to Dark Lightning Inferno 66 for subscribing. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for the subscription. Let's see. Yeah. That scared the crap out of me. Albert Ponce just dropped a super chat for $5. Yeah. $5 super chat. Off topic, but with all the drama backstage in AEW, Athena becoming ROH champ was the best move from her. 100+ day reign, and she could be the foundation. My friend, this is extremely off topic, but I will answer this. I do want to point this out. Athena being women's champion is the right idea. Athena being brought into AEW only to be used on ROH is not the right idea. They have mishandled Athena very, very, very much so. I will stand on that. I will say, and I don't want to get off a tangent because we're talking about WWE and NXT. And just a quick reminder, no matter how hard Tony Khan tries, this week is not about him. This week is not about ROH. It's not about AEW. It's about WWE. And realistically, I feel like AEW has mishandled talent since day one. I will continue to stand firm on that. A lot of people in that company I respect. I enjoy their work. I enjoy their portfolio. I see how they're being used. Athena is one of them. She's a great ROH champ. She shouldn't be ROH champ. She should be TBS champ. She should be on Dynamite every single week. She should be doing big things every single week on TV. She shouldn't be wrestling on ROH. She shouldn't be wrestling on AEW Dark. She shouldn't be doing any of those things. I stand firm on that. However, yes, you are right in the sense that she could be the foundation, but what would be the purpose of doing that when ROH does not have a large audience? You know what I mean? That's just the reality. Albert Ponce, $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that, bro. I want to bring you in on a call to talk about NXT tonight. So whenever you're ready, let me know if you're interested. If you're not interested, no big deal, but let me know. I could get you in on Discord. I enjoy talking to you on Discord, buddy. So we'll definitely do that. Justin Kennington says Sol Ruka has a bright future in WWE and she has the best finisher in NXT and possibly the entire WWE. Sol Ruka is an incredible talent. To be honest, I don't think she's even getting enough credit, but it just goes to show you the the beauty of NXT, right? It's the same thing that NXT has always been good for, modeling talent and developing talent and getting them ready for spotlight, really. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I think Sol Ruka, when the time is right, she'll be really good. I think she'll be really successful. Shout out to Florence. Shout out from Florence, South Carolina. Shout out to you, Robert Springs. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate you. Going back to the Dominic Mysterio thing, Big MGM made a really good comment too. He says, in regards to Simone Johnson, she's in a tough spot. We saw how hard it is to live up to a legend with Dom early in his career. However, you do have to remember, Dom was rushed onto the main roster. Simone Johnson obviously wasn't. So it will be interesting. I think that's another thing, though. That's what makes it even more interesting. She's been on TV. She's built her confidence up. I can't wait to see what she looks like in the ring, man. And how much does she wrestle? What is she going to do? And the thing is, reality is, she can only wrestle Thea Hail because WWE doesn't do intergender wrestling. So is Thea Hail a good enough partner for Simone Johnson to mix it up in the ring? That's going to be a test. There's going to be a lot of pressure on that. Pierre says, Ango, do you think Bron will retain or Carmelo will have a good reign prior move? Yeah, I think Carmelo Hayes wins it without a doubt. I don't think there's a scenario in which Bron Breakker wins. Bron Breakker's doing commercials with AJ Styles. I think, in my opinion, Bron Breakker's ready for main roster. I think it happens on Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania. I think the call-up is set for immediately. I'm scared to see how they push him, what they do. I've talked about this before.
Me more.
Thank you, Steve, for the subscription. Appreciate you. I'm just really scared to see how they book Bron Breakker on the main roster. But Carmelo Hayes will be amazing in NXT. He's going to be an amazing champion. Clearly, I'm going to be excited about that because if you guys know anything about me, I'm a huge Carmelo Hayes fan. Back when he was Christian Casanova on the independent scene, that was a good time. A lot of great things in the chat, so make sure you guys keep it coming. Negla K, am I going live for the Hall of Fame? Yeah, everything that happens Friday night, I'll be talking about on the live stream. Ango, I'm not sure if you saw my comment on your Jay White video, but what if Jay White shows up in New York and joins Juice Robinson to make his own Bullet Club in AEW? He is the king of New York, so why not? That's always a possibility. I'm not interested in any new AEW signings right now. I'm just being honest, because they haven't really developed talent. They really haven't done anything with the people they've already signed into their company. That company, in my opinion, is a mess. And if I'm being honest, every time somebody talks to me and tells me, oh, AEW should sign this person, AEW should sign that person, that's great. But what about the people that they signed previously? They don't get used. They're booked for AEW Dark. They get moved to ROH. It's a big deal, right? They make the big announcement. They get the big moment, the big pop, and then there's literally no momentum. And that it's an issue. And, there's a lot of people I enjoy watching in a wrestling ring. And the fact is, like, for them to be made a big deal, but then ultimately not used as a big deal, it's a very, very bad approach. This is why people lose momentum in that company. Personally speaking, Jay White going to AEW, he probably fits better in AEW, but I can't get excited about Jay White's potential in AEW when Adam Cole really hasn't done anything that stood out to me, or some of these other guys. So, no, I don't want to see that, in my opinion. Mike Holmes, yo, nice meeting you again this past weekend at Impact, homie. How was your experience there? Guys, this is Mike. Mike, shout out to you. Guys, when I got to Impact, this was such a crazy experience. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I got invited to go to Impact for both nights. Just an incredible experience overall. That company has been my favorite promotion forever. Truth be told, I loved everything about my experience. But when I walked into the arena, when I walked into the venue, I was greeted by a gentleman, Mike Holmes. Shout out to you, man. That was really cool. It's always nice. I won't lie to you guys. Like, as I grew a little bit more on YouTube, I started to get approached in public, which it's so crazy to think that even happens because I just make YouTube videos. I just talk about wrestling. But It's always cool when somebody comes up to me, says hello. It always makes me feel good, obviously. But Mike was just incredible. It was nice talking to you, man. I loved everything about the show. It was so fun. Everybody there, the talent, the staff, the fans, everybody was just so nice to me. I got approached by a few other people, and they were really nice to me too. It was just a really cool experience. I'm going to be back there. I think so. I'm going to be back in Toronto. I'm going to go back to Toronto for Rebellion. I think that's the plan as of right now. I'll be back for Under Siege, and then I should be back for Slammiversary. So yeah, that'll be really cool. And yeah, man, just thank you again. Thank you for everything. It was really nice meeting you, dude. Seriously, thank you. Oh, I got Albert here. Let me get Albert on the call. We're gonna bring in Albert Ponce really quick. Albert.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, brother.
There we go. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Good, man. How's it been?
Good, man. Good. I'm glad you're here for Angomania, the weekly extravaganza.
Absolutely, man. Definitely. Still have the scars from last year, so definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. So let me ask you. You watched NXT tonight, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Obviously, you were popping off in Discord. So, tell me overall thoughts. What'd you think? What do you want to talk about, man? It's Tuesday night. You know, we're just chilling.
No, definitely. So I definitely agree with the whole Roxanne Shawn Michaels segment, where definitely, it's great to see that they bring in real life situations and what's going on, in your personal life. But if what happened with Roxanne is that, let's say if she had a panic attack, she had, some kind of emotional episode, I question if her going heel and joining Damage Control is the right move.
Oh, of
because
course.
when you're, when you're the person, that you're always smiling, you're happy to, be a part of what's going on and everything, to try to get the crowd to turn on you and, boo you, and not because you suck, but because they really hate, the character that you are. It's hard to do that. And, if she's not mentally in that space right now, I question if her going heel could be something that can hurt her, down the road.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would definitely hurt her. I think they, if this was the route that they decided to go to bring her onto television, they definitely made a mistake. I don't think that's the case, though. I don't know. I mean, right now, I just think Roxanne, and again, I don't want to speculate on like what really caused her to take off television time. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, absolutely.
But obviously, storyline wise, they're saying it's because of an anxiety thing, and anxiety and dehydration and exhaustion. So the thing is, if it's a real situation, like that's what caused. I don't want to speculate on it, but my thing is Roxanne Perez right now is a really, really good baby face. I just don't, to be honest with you, like I don't get what the purpose would have been for the story unless something legitimate did happen and then they just need an excuse. You know what I mean? Like if this was all, like before it was said it was a work, right? But let's just say it's not a work, or let's just say it is a work, right? Why go to the extent of like this? You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of, I don't know. Sometimes there's things that happen in wrestling that I just can't make sense out of it. My guess is that it wasn't a work, despite the fact that earlier I thought it was. My guess is maybe it wasn't actually a work. Not in the sense of her collapsing. I think the collapse was a work, right? Like obviously, like I think like her collapsing, I think that was very like that was planned, obviously. But I think the thing that happened backstage, like, or whatever happened to her backstage or whatever, like was the reason for her taking time off, I don't think that was actually like planned. You know what I mean? Like I think something happened where they're like, all right, we need to take you off the TV for a little bit till we figure it out. And if that's the case, I hope it has nothing to do with mental health or anxiety or whatever, because that just in general would be pretty bad. That would suck, But I don't know why they would put a story about it either. Like that's the thing with WWE is like, why? I don't know. It's a huge question mark for me, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And it's the same question I have, in regards to Cora Jade. Is she injured right now?
She is, yeah.
Okay, she is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, perfect. But yeah, outside of that, one thing that really kind of like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but is actually growing on me is Pretty Deadly.
Oh my gosh, Albert, yes, dude.
They give me that like that New Day vibe, that Miz vibe, where they can go in the ring, but they're also sports entertainers, and they can, sit there and host WrestleMania. They can host Stand and Deliver, and they have that personality to them that they can do that work and still, have a purpose for being on the show. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I learned this a while ago, but some people are kind of given the expectation, like, hey, like, we're entertainers, we're a comedy act, we're great wrestlers, and maybe one day we could do something serious, but right now, we're the comedy act. Our job is to entertain. Our job is to take those table shots, during a contract signing. Pretty Deadly, they are going to be really, really good on the main roster when WWE is ready to utilize them. I don't want to rush it just yet because the tag team division on the main roster still needs to be worked on. Obviously, that all happens after the Usos drop the belts. But Pretty Deadly, in my opinion, are going to be really, really good on the main roster because I think with the flip of a switch, they could be really, really good wrestlers and deliver those great wrestling matches, right? But then also when WWE says, hey, we need a team to take a loss, this is the team that's going to do it. I think they'll be able to do it and not have an issue with it, and they'll be reliable. And the one thing I learned, especially this past weekend, is sometimes people know that they're there to be reliable. Wrestlers know that, everybody has a role. And I think Pretty Deadly could fill that role very well. And I honestly, actually, one thing I do want to point out too about Pretty Deadly is like, they are extremely over with the NXT crowd. And I typically say anytime somebody's extremely over with the NXT crowd, it doesn't translate well to the main roster. I think because of the way that they act and the way that they do things in the ring, I think the transition will actually be a lot easier for them than, let's say, guys like the Creed brothers. You know what I mean? Because if you look at the Creed brothers, they're good wrestlers. They really don't have good personality. And
right.
It's not that they don't have good personality. I don't think it's developed fully in NXT, but it doesn't help with the way NXT 2.0 and then it transitioned to NXT. I've said it before. There's a lot of people who clearly don't have the best acting skills because that's not their thing, So I think some people will struggle a lot more than others, but just off of pure entertainment value, they're going to be really successful on that main roster for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, as I said in the chat earlier, and I said in Discord, for me this weekend, as far as WWE goes, triple threat for the Intercontinental title and the 5-way for the North American title. Those are my two matches to see this weekend. These will be the ones that will completely blow the roof off the place.
Yeah, man. I mean, look at how stacked this weekend is. I mean, like I said, it's WWE's weekend to shine, and Triple H, Triple H between the tag team matches that he has set up, and across all brands, right? I mean, you look at the women's division, that's probably gonna. I think a lot of people are sleeping on some of these matches, but the Fatal 4 women's match will be good. The Fatal 4-way men's tag match will be good. Obviously, the NXT Tag Team Championship match. Like, there's a lot of things that WWE. We need to get to WrestleMania before we see the full takeover of WWE and Triple H and everything, right? But I think if you look at it from the perspective of like this weekend and the specific matches that are on NXT and WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2, there's a lot of matches that maybe, like, obviously we both agree on the triple threat match. We agree on the Fatal 5-way, but we're just looking at those because on paper, we know those wrestlers are really good and there's going to be chemistry there. But there's other matches with individuals where it's like, okay, this is their chance to make their WrestleMania moment. They're going to have something really cool go down. And that is where I'm just like totally geeked for it. Honestly, I'm totally geeked to see that potential possibility of, like, again, the Fatal 4-way women's match. On paper, it's probably not the strongest, but even those women Liv Morgan and Raquel and some of these other people that are involved in the match, it's like those are the ones to watch out for.
Chelsea's going to make it entertaining for sure.
Yeah. And Albert, what did I say when Chelsea Green debuted? When she was in the Rumble, everybody was sitting there, oh, she buried. She came in and lost in 30 seconds. Oh, my God, they don't know what to do with her. Remember? Now look at what's happening with her.
Me more.
No, exactly. Yep. And I mean, she's so over with the crowd. It's not even funny.
Yeah, it's working. And, the thing is, I don't know what's going on with Carmella. Obviously, there's talks of her possibly being injured. There's talks of like some other stuff. But I talked about it yesterday. I don't know if you saw because you weren't in the stream, but I was talking about the idea of Carmella, Sonya, and Chelsea Green starting an own trio. There's not enough women factions. There's a lot of factions in the men's division across WWE. We can utilize more women's factions. It helps get more people on TV. Plus, when you look at NXT, there's a lot of talent that could benefit from getting called up. You could do a 4-person, faction with Carmella, Chelsea Green, Sonya Deville. Just imagine a group of women who are just constantly complaining about their booking. And imagine they get to the point where it's like WrestleMania, Chelsea loses, right? After the match, she loses and everybody gets out of the ring and she just starts freaking out. She's throwing things, it's one, and it's something I'll talk about more, obviously, in my WrestleMania prediction show tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern time on youtube.com/@ango. But when I go live tomorrow and I talk about it, I imagine Chelsea Green is going to shine, and it's not even going to have anything to do with the wrestling portion of it. It's just going to have to do with storytelling, character work, and things like that. So it's just such a big weekend for WrestleMania and for NXT and WWE. Actually, Jacoby Peter just put it in the chat too. Lauren Van Ness vibes. So anybody who remembers,
I was going to say that.
Yeah. So anybody who remembers watching TNA Impact with Chelsea Green when she was Laurel, was it Laurel Van Ness or Lauren Van Ness? I can't remember.
No, I think it was Laurel. It was Laurel.
That's what I thought.
And yeah,
too.
I was going to say it would be funny if she lost and then everybody left the ring.
Yeah.
And then, she just stormed off and Monday Laurel Van Ness showed up, with the wedding dress and the face makeup and everything, the hot mess.
I mean, that's really what it is. It's the hot mess character, but it's a Karen. It's like a mix of both, and
yeah,
the smeared eyeliner or whatever. There's just so many cool things that they can do. And honestly, like, that's why I'm super excited for WWE this week. I feel like Triple H has had to battle through so much shit in the past 9 months. And he was inherited a lot of stuff. And I get it, bro. Like, one thing that you do, and I notice it sometimes on Twitter or Discord, like, you'll complain sometimes. And we all do, obviously, so I'm not singling you out. But, like, you and many other people will sit there and be like, oh, well, this person, the tag team division is, not being utilized, or someone's not being utilized, right? And then me and you talk, and then we start to realize it's like, well, how do you randomly utilize this person when, like, there's another direction for other people that has to take priority right now, So I feel like once WrestleMania is done, a lot of people who weren't utilized properly, I think that changes for a lot of people. And that is something that's exciting to me, to be honest.
Agreed. And definitely from your previous video, I'll also say that I give the WWE until Backlash, because at some point, yeah, you do have to be held accountable.
100%.
You started bringing back talent last year, October, November, so, first the narrative was we're almost at the end of the year. Then it was, Elimination Chamber. Then it was, now the Rumble, and now Mania. After Mania, yeah, we have to start seeing that reset, which we should, because a lot of things that Triple H has done have made the product better.
Yeah.
So there's things here and there. Unfortunately, a lot of it is with the women's division, but I definitely think that things are definitely at least going in the right direction and not back down. So, I have faith that, everything will work out.
Speaking of the women's division, let me just ask you, when you look at NXT, right, we look at Fallon Henley, we look at Kiana James, we look at, Indy Hartwell, Ivy Nile. Honestly, the women's division is actually booked extremely well in NXT compared to the main roster. Like, every female in NXT, typically, like Lyra Valkyria, she's a great example. Isla Dawn, Alba Fire. I feel like every female on the NXT
Zoe
roster.
Stark.
Oh yeah, Zoe Stark. Everybody kind of has a character or some sort of progress that's being made, progression every single week, you know? So let me ask you, because I'm looking at Stand and Deliver, there's a lot of people that I think could benefit from getting called up. I think there's some people that could benefit being the women's champion. Do you think Roxanne Perez is going to keep the title at Stand and Deliver? What are you expecting out of that with a ladder match?
I would definitely be okay with her keeping it, only because I think that her being champion will help her get that confidence as she starts, having more matches, winning more, representing the company, having that, being the face of the brand, will help her, opposed to not winning, going up to the main roster and possibly sitting with Zia Lee and Aaliyah, waiting for, an opportunity. So, but if she didn't win, then for me, it's Tiffany. I think Tiffany wins it. She has the package. She just has that it factor that I can see her winning if Roxanne is not retaining.
So, you know me, I don't like hot potato championship reigns, right?
Right.
But I don't like
Absolutely.
long championship reigns unless it's like the Roman Reigns thing. And the reason why the Roman Reigns things work is because overall the story just, in my opinion, it's so good that it doesn't even matter how long he keeps the championship, right? But
Right.
I kind of on this idea that if Tiffany Stratton were to win the NXT Women's Championship, which by the way, I actually agree, I think that's the right move. I think she needs to win it with somebody doing all the dirty work for her. And
Yes.
I don't know who they have that could potentially debut or who can get a character change, or maybe somebody from the main roster gets called back down to be her bodyguard or something. But like, I imagine like Tiffany Stratton winning the ladder match when somebody else is about to win, maybe Roxanne Perez. This would actually be a good idea. Roxanne Perez is about to grab the ladder. Somebody throws the ladder. It's a masked woman, somebody in a mask, ski mask, hoodie, whatever. They push the ladder over, set the ladder up, and grab the briefcase and give it to Tiffany Stratton. She's too afraid of heights to go up the ladder and do it herself. She's a girly girl. They want to do the stereotypical thing where like she's not going to do it herself. The person climbs the ladder for her, grabs her the belt.
Right.
What happened? She paid it off. Like, I don't know who that person could be, but if I was fantasy booking this, if I was in WWE creative, I think that could be a really good thing to have Tiffany Stratton as the heel. It would just be who does the job for her. I don't know. Is there any name in your head that you think of that could potentially do it? I don't know. It's a strange scenario, but I feel like that could really get Tiffany Stratton over, and then it also justifies Roxanne Perez not winning, and then it sets up a nice little program as well.
Right, exactly. So it depends on whether you want to have somebody just do the dirty work and it's a one-time deal, or you want to have her, have like a bodyguard. Because if you pair her with somebody that, watches her back, you can do like a Lash Legend, somebody big, maybe like Elektra, maybe she gets her to, be her bodyguard, something like that. But if it's someone random, I'm not sure, who would really stick out. Maybe Cora Jade, just to stick it to Roxanne.
I know, but she's
I could see
injured.
that.
Cora Jade's injured.
Right.
So.
Yeah, true. Yeah, she's injured. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's tough, because I would say the same thing. I'd be like, okay, that works. I thought even Nikita Lyons would be great for a heel run, but she's also injured, so I don't know if she would be ready to come back.
I could see another scenario where, say, like, the tried and true, Roxanne hits her finisher on Indy, and Tiffany's been playing possum, and grabs Roxanne, throws her out, and pins Indy and gets the win. And she still gets that that cheap heat from the fans for basically just cheating to win without doing the work.
Yeah. In the chat, I see a couple suggestions. So Keenan says the mystery woman could be Lola Vice because of her MMA background. Low key, like, this could be a really fire idea, actually, because Lola Vice, we've seen her on NXT Level Up. We haven't seen her on NXT programming, from my understanding.
She's been good too on Level Up. She's been good.
Yeah, so I think that would be the right way to do it. I mean, She's a former Bellator fighter, Valerie Loretta, finally getting on NXT. And you do it in front of the crowd, right? You do it at Stand and Deliver in front of such a big crowd, which, by the way, props to WWE and NXT for selling out these larger arenas, PLEs. I just think that's awesome. So Lola Vice is actually a good idea. It would be interesting that she would go heel. Because I thought she could be a good babyface for WWE too. But that is something to definitely pay attention to. And then Adam78 says Tiffany hasn't been on the roster long enough to deserve title. I believe Hartwell deserves the whole title. Normally, I would agree with this. I actually have nothing against Indy Hartwell. I just think she's going up to the main roster. I think WWE put her in this match so she could have a final send-off. I think she goes to the main roster as soon as SmackDown, right after WrestleMania. So that's an interesting thing. And then Randy Samuel says, what about Tamina? I don't know how I feel about Tamina coming to NXT to work for Tiffany Stratton. But then again, too, she is a veteran, so it kind of makes sense. Like, if she's not going to do anything in the main roster, you know what I mean?
Nobody meaner than Tamina.
I mean, this is an interesting fantasy booking that I came up with, I think, because Tiffany winning that match could be huge. It just goes to show you, though, how good the women's division in NXT is. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. I mean, there's storylines all over the place, whether it's singles or tags. And yeah, I don't understand where the discord, from the storytelling in NXT for the women and the main roster. But yeah, Sean does a good job with the women in NXT. And it's been like that for a long time too.
You would think that the main roster could follow suit. It's not even like I mean, I get it. The main roster is a tough situation right now. The women's booking in the main roster compared to NXT is totally different. Justin Kennington in the chat says, what about Piper Niven? Normally, I'd agree with this, but they've been doing a good job of restoring her image on the main roster. She was somebody as Dewdrop. She was never going to get over. I think there's some potential there, but I wouldn't want to see her back in NXT. Plus, I don't want to see Piper Niven as like second fiddle to the women's champion,
Right. Yeah. That should be someone who is still fairly young, still getting, that TV time, but isn't really someone you're focusing on, opposed to someone. Yeah. No one from the main roster should be doing this at all.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out too that I kind of thought about, like the NIL program. I know there was a set of twins. I think they were from like college basketball or something. I forgot their last name. It was like something Cavatina or something. I can't remember, so I'm butchering the hell out of it. But there was a set of twins that were signed to NXT in about August of last year. They haven't debuted on TV. Maybe this is a situation where NXT has their own women's faction. They come in, they're twins, they do the job. They're both blonde. They can fit in with Tiffany Stratton from the aesthetic side of things. That could be interesting too. What if you have a new faction help Tiffany Stratton wins? Randy Samuel says they're the Cavalriar twins. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Yeah, so, I mean, I think it could work, right? It would be cool to see them do something random and shocking. Because if you're going to have Roxanne Perez lose, then do something shocking. Make it fun. Tiffany Stratton is the type of girl, her character, she doesn't want to work hard. Her dad gives her the credit cards, Tiffany Epiphany, she saw this coming. She grabbed the credit card and paid somebody to do it. And I don't know. I think it could be a good thing for her character to go that. Steve is saying it's the Cavenger twins. So maybe that's it. Let me take a look. I'm gonna Google this. WWE the Cavenger twins. I can't remember the name. Cavender. Hannah and Haley Cavender. Okay. Let me throw them on. They were college basketball. Let me throw them on the screen. And I'm actually going to send this to you in Discord too, so you can see what they look like. I knew I wasn't tripping, man, because I pay attention to all the NIL signings. So this is who they are. Hannah and Haley Cavender. So, I mean, I can tell you right now, there's nobody else on YouTube or Twitter or podcasting who is thinking about this type of stuff. This is how deep I get into my fantasy booking. But I just threw them on the screen. And, I mean, they definitely look like they would fit in with the Tiffany Stratton type of character, right?
Absolutely.
They're
Absolutely.
all blonde. They help her do the job. The cool thing is they don't have to wrestle as much. It's almost like Tony D'Angelo bringing in his family. You know, they take the bumps, they take everything. And this way there's no pressure on them as new signings to be winning or be good wrestlers. But they could take all the losses for Tiffany Stratton. It could work, man. It could work.
Absolutely. No, definitely. Yeah. And, you know, Tiffany is the perfect one that you can do those outrageous things because, you know, she has that personality. So, yeah, definitely could work. But hey, you know, we haven't spoken about the best part of the episode. Okay.
Okay.
Schism and Chase U.
All right, hit me.
It actually has me thinking, like, if Chase U loses, so what happens with Andre Chase? You know, I mean, this is like his character. This is what he does. You know, like I had spoken in Discord a long time ago. Like, you know, Chase U is the perfect faction for NXT because it allows you to bring, you know, some of these NIL people in. They don't have to really be center of attention, but they can get that TV time. You know, they can get a couple of words here and there, you know, and start getting practice. But, you know, if Andre Chase loses, you know, like he just goes back to being a regular wrestler, or is he like a teacher for hire? You know, what's going on there?
Oh, Andre Chase he's not based on wins or losses. Chase U was never built on that. It was always, in my opinion at least, it was always designed to be more of a entertainment act, which is fine. I think the story is obviously Duke Hudson turning, but it's Schism. I like Schism. I'll be honest with you. I don't like Schism's potential on the main roster though with this gimmick.
No, absolutely not.
I think the main roster will reject it. So
yes,
they have to do some things to make it less spooky, if that makes sense. It's not even really that spooky to begin with, but something a little bit less spooky. This match, Schism has to win. Ava Rain should pick up the win. Duke Hudson should probably join Schism. Have him attack Andre Chase. Yeah, he should join Schism.
Okay.
I think Schism. I don't think if you join Schism, it has to be like this huge ordeal. It could just be like a one-off type of thing. Like he found himself. You know, Schism helped him find himself. Now he's off venturing on his own. That's it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. As long as he's not staying there for too long, you know, because I'd like to see him you know, he had potential when he first came up, and then there was kind of like a little decline. You know, he kind of got lost in the shuffle. Then, you know, he went, you know, with Chase U, which is fine. I've been waiting for him to turn. So if he joins Schism for a little bit just to branch off on his own, that's fine. Because I think that, you know, he's someone that we need to see, you know, if he's going to sink or swim, you know, and there's a lot of people in NXT, you know, like Von Wagner that I feel is in that same boat, you know, Zion Quinn, you know, some of these people that, you know, they were given a push, they were, you know, they showed potential, and then, you know, they kind of just like start floating around NXT.
I think the biggest thing is that everybody thinks when you move from NXT to the main roster, you have to be a winner, right? You have to be a championship guy. You have to be a top guy. You have to be this. You have to be that. There's some people in NXT and there's some people in WWE in general who realistically, they don't have characters and they don't have that superstardom type of feel to them where they can go off and venture and be a big star. But there's people in NXT, for example, Duke Hudson's one of them. He can go to the main roster. He doesn't need to be a big push, right? He doesn't need to have one. He could just be there, win some matches, lose some matches, you know, and then maybe if he gets over with the crowd, then you have him eventually repackage, you know. There's people like that where I think they're skilled, but also they're not skilled enough to be a world champion. They wouldn't be my priority for a world championship run. So Zion Quinn, another guy, I think the future is bright for him. But at the same time, too, look how many guys there are in the WWE that are big guys. You know, look how many guys are big guys. They have the Vince McMahon look. But then when it comes to other things, they don't necessarily have it. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like, I think people look at it as a bad thing, but it's like, It's okay to be on the main roster and not necessarily be a champion. It's okay to be in the low card, like lower card, undercard, mid card thing. Like I don't see every single individual having to be a championship holder. Duke Hudson is one of those guys. People forgot about him as Brennan Vink on the main roster during COVID. It was him and Shane Thorne being managed by MVP. People forgot about that. And
that's right. Wow.
It was during the pandemic, and I thought he was good. I think he has a look that Vince McMahon would like. I thought Shane Thorne was good. He could be a tag team guy. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a tag team. It's like, it's like in Discord when you talk about Hit Row, like, oh, Hit Row are jobbers. Yeah, I mean, for now they have to be, right? There's other tag teams who I'd prioritize that. But also at the same time, too, think about it. Hit Row eventually can do something to spice up their characters and eventually get a push. I always say in wrestling, it's like, this is the craziest thing, by the way, but I've noticed in the real world, there has been times where like you go to a job, right? And your boss tells you, it's like, okay, let me step back for a second. You work a real job in an office job. You guys are working on an app or something, and you go to your boss and you're like, hey, I have this really cool idea to make this app really, really, really good. And the boss comes back to you and says, hey, I'm listening to ideas. What's your idea? You give him the idea, and the boss has to then decide whether or not he wants to spend $1 million to implement that feature on the app, right? This is a really dumb analogy, but I think it makes sense. So if you're the guy who's got $1 million and this guy gives you the idea, you have to decide if you want to invest that money. Think of it like a wrestler. Instead of, if you're a wrestler, like, I don't want to go too off track, but if you're a wrestler, at the end of the day, you're going to have good ideas and you're going to want to hope that your boss invests in you. It turns out the boss says, hey, right now it's not a good idea. That's not where I want to spend $1 million. So I think, like, at that point, the boss will say, hey, great idea. Keep the ideas coming. I don't think it makes sense right now, but remember why we pay you. We pay you to do your job. So keep doing your job. It's like wrestling. Hey, great idea. You're not going to be a world champion right now, but keep working, keep losing, keep winning, keep working on yourself. Eventually, hopefully we can figure things out. I know it's a weird analogy. I probably could have worded it better, but my point is Brennan Vink, Von Wagner. Well, I said Brennan Vink, but Duke Hudson, Von Wagner, like there's just certain people where it's like they have potential, but it's not going to happen right now. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen right now. But in the meanwhile, they could still be featured in storylines, and whether they win or lose, I know Twitter will say people are buried, but at the end of the day, that's just the biggest bullshit ever,
Right. Which I try to stay away from saying buried. I'll say, they're jobbing, like for me personally, this past Monday on Raw, for me, Seth and Ali, I love seeing him on TV, but to me, he was just jobbing. There was nothing really there that really, like, it was a quick match,
Yeah.
He was on TV, that's great, but, and it just, I look at some of these people like Ali, and I think that if he's given the actual opportunity, and a little bit of time invested, he doesn't have to be, main eventing Raw every night, every Monday or anything, but, if he's given time consistently to have a nice little like if him and Ziggler, if they put him in a real feud, let them actually go out there, and have, matches for a couple of Mondays, and then, have a blow off at one of the PLEs. Even if he loses, I'll at least be happy that, he's in an actual storyline, opposed to just being brought up, here and there just to give Seth a win before WrestleMania,
So
if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. Now, I don't know if you saw my video the other day. He is set for a push after WrestleMania, just so you know.
Right, which, I did see. Yeah.
But think about it this way. Imagine if they randomly pushed him without him losing these matches. It would make no sense, right? So him losing, him being positive, Ali, him doing all of these things tell me that, like, it's all part of the process. Now, here's what I will say about Mustafa Ali, because I'm a huge fan of Ali. I think he's an incredible talent. He has posted promos that he specifically made himself and posted them on Twitter. They were cinematic. They were really good. They were really awesome. Yep. And I think those types of things could work on WWE TV. For whatever reason, at the time, WWE decided not to utilize that. Now, I want to make this very clear, Albert, because I'm a huge fan of Mustafa Ali, okay? As much as of a fan I am, the crowd does not necessarily feel the same way that me and you feel about him. And there's a couple reasons for that. I think retribution was incredibly damaging. I think that's the one thing. I think Twitter, they wanted WWE to free Ali so bad. They wanted him to go to AEW, right? They wanted him so bad to leave because he requested his release. But then when Ali came back to WWE under the Vince McMahon regime, what happened? They didn't react for him. This is why social media is a joke, and this is why if you're Triple H or Tony Khan, you need to stop pandering to Twitter, because you can't. Those people are not the vocal majority. The people who are the vocal majority are the people buying tickets, spending hundreds of bucks on tickets, and reacting. Boo or cheer. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And I like Ali. He's getting a better reaction in this character. As some people are pointing out in the chat, he'll probably have a different character where he goes negative. And I think Ali is really good. I think he'll be able to make it work. I think we're already seeing him make it work. But he has to lose in order for it to work. You know what I mean?
I like it. Yeah, he definitely is making it work. I just, I hope they give him time with it, because he can definitely make it work. And, I definitely think that he can get the crowd to, get behind him. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you just got to remember, one thing for Ali is that the retribution stuff was not good.
God, jeez, yeah.
And it's not his fault. I mean, I just think retribution, it was bad timing. There was a lot of things wrong with it, but bad timing. I think the name changes for everybody was kind of bad, And I just think a lot of people didn't take it serious from the start. And it's so unfortunate, because you look at that group of people and you're like, wow, they're all talented and they couldn't make this work. It's not their fault. It was bad ideas. It was during the pandemic. But I look at TV time as a real instrument for how things should be done, So if I'm looking at TV time and I'm looking at Ali every single week and he's doing backstage segments, or kind of like Chelsea Green, right? Like, you're on TV, you're doing good. You just got to keep rolling with the punches until there's something there for you. I think all of this is leading to something big for Ali. And it just kind of goes back to NXT, right? Like, look at some of these people on NXT where, Ava Raine, perfect example. Simone Johnson. We haven't seen what she wrestles like. We don't know anything about her. We just know that she's on TV every week. And now she's going to show everybody how she wrestles. If she can show that she's a somewhat decent wrestler, cool. People will like it. You know what I mean? People will be excited for her. If she flops in the ring, it could be over before it truly starts, So it's just such a tough thing when you look at wrestling. Like, there's a lot of pressure for some of these people, and there shouldn't be. But I just think wrestling fans in general have gotten to the point where it's like, yo, like, this person's got to be a champion, or this person's got to do this, or this person's got to do that. In reality, they don't. It's okay to lose. And I think Tony Khan is actually part of the problem, because AEW, they specifically don't have people on TV because he doesn't want them to lose. It's all about protecting people. But at the end of the day, you can look good with losing. Look at Solo Sikoa. He lost his match, and it's like nobody gives a shit that he lost, because stories and characters
but Twitter
matter.
almost died because of that, though.
Say that again?
I said Twitter almost died because Solo lost. I'm like, come on, people, seriously?
Yeah, man. And just imagine, I don't know, man. It's Twitter. I will never take opinions seriously on Twitter. I get people like in my feed, and it's like, I mean, unless it's like one of my followers, like people that like if it's one of my like viewers, Discord members, and like they tweet me and they disagree, like that's different, because I know them. We engage in conversation every day. It's normal to disagree. But sometimes you'll get people, like, I'll put out a tweet like, oh, perfect example. I tweeted Carmelo Hayes. He tweeted out the photo of the big black and gold NXT title without the rainbow colors. And I responded back with the old NXT title. And just immediately a whole bunch of people started shitting on me. Dude, what are you talking about? That belt is ugly, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's people's reactions. It's like, dude, you don't even know me, and your first reaction is to go and dislike something I'm saying on Twitter about a championship belt, because that's my freaking opinion. So, like, at the end of the day, Twitter, when I look at Twitter, I would never look at that person and be like, they know what they're talking about. Because if you click on their freaking account, it's Billy Bob 665432242, 2 followers, maybe 0 followers, no profile pic. That's not somebody to me where I feel like I should take their opinion seriously. And that's why Tony Khan, AEW, WWE, they shouldn't. They should not take those people seriously because those people are probably the ones who aren't buying pay-per-views. They're definitely not buying tickets to the show. They're definitely not doing anything other than just expressing in tribalism, you know? Like, when you participate in that type of behavior, and I think you and I kind of understand this because you and I, like, we kind of go back at this point, but look how awesome it's been to watch wrestling, and through good and bad, we're always focused on wrestling being better, right? AEW, WWE, Impact, New Japan, MLW, GCW, like, we just want to see the industry healthy. So when we talk about something we don't like, we don't get nasty with our words. We're just talking about maybe what we would do differently or what we personally would like to see differently, you know? But there's other individuals out there who are like, well, if WWE doesn't do this, then WWE's dead. And it's like, or Solo Sikoa lost, he's buried. It's like, whoa, like, how are you saying this dude is buried? And he finally lost. At this point, it's like, thank God the story hasn't been made about Solo Sikoa's undefeated streak. I forgot he even had an undefeated streak. Because I don't even look at wins and losses anymore. I just look at his progression as a story, you know?
No, absolutely. I absolutely agree. And yeah, that's why, I mean, it fascinates me because I'll sit there and I'll read some of the comments that these people, do. And it like, they get so serious about it. Like, they just want to, like, scream, until their heads explode. I'm like, guys, this is wrestling. It's great. We all love it, but it's not that serious, for you guys to be like, as crazy. And it just, it's fascinating. But that's why I enjoy, people like you, because, we can sit there, we can agree a lot of the times, we can disagree sometimes, but we can always talk about it, and, be able to express, our views. And I mean, yeah, I've been with you long enough where I remember, the times you went nuclear on the WWE, and people said, oh, Angle, he's an AEW lover, he's getting paid by Tony Khan. And then when, AEW started being bad and, you rightfully critique them, oh, yeah, he's on Triple H's payroll. It's like, come on, people, seriously, you see he clearly, is biased to everybody. He gives credit and he critiques, and that's the way it should be. And we should all be able to, bring our, our opinions and, talk about them in a civilized manner, let's say.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's right. But even think about it this way too, right? Like, and I was talking about it this past weekend when I was at Impact. I was meeting some people and this kid came up to me and he's like, yeah, he's like, the only thing I don't like about you though, he's like, I like your videos and I like you and I think you're great and I like seeing you succeed. But he's like, if there's one thing I don't like about you is that sometimes in your videos or your live streams you'll be like, well, I said this a year ago. He's like, well, I'm not gonna go back a year and watch your old stuff, to be honest. He's like, I just found you now. I'm not gonna go look for that video. And it's like, I understand what you're saying, 100%. And if you're the kid that said this to me this past weekend at Impact Sacrifice and you're watching the stream, it's all love. I'm glad you said it. But deep down inside, I can't sit here. I have over 1,500 videos. I think I'm close to like 2,000. I can't sit here and go back and find every single video clip that I once said. But the cool thing is, for the most part, I've been able to find most of the clips, right? But also, everybody knows if you watch this channel, I talk about news, rumors, and I analyze everything. And pretty much everything I ever say has something to do with, hey, I just want it to be better, right? This is what I would do differently. This is how I personally would make it better. And when I criticize a company, it's all in the sense of, I want this company to do better. So all of that has to do with one common denominator, and that's storytelling. And I will tell you right now, I won't say names, but there are people out there who have specifically told me, hey, storylines don't matter. And these are people that are very big names in the industry, which is shocking to me that they say storylines don't matter. But hey, that's their opinion. I'm not going to tell them to change their mind. In my opinion, storylines do matter. Why? Because I don't want to watch TV if there's not a good storyline, if there's not a storyline in place. But by the way, notice that I said me personally, right? I'm not here to speak for a common wrestling fan or a hardcore fan. I'm not here to put words into other people's mouth. I'm just here to tell you guys how I view wrestling. So if you go back to day one of my YouTube channel, day one of my YouTube career 14 years ago, I have always believed that wrestling is better with characters and storylines. I'll never forget hating on Santino Marella. And then I thought about it. I was like, it's so dumb. It's so stupid. It's not for me. Right? But there was other people who liked it. Then the more and more that I watched it, I was like, it's stupid. It's dumb. It's ridiculous. But for some reason, I love it. I don't know why, but I'm catching on to it. I love it. Then it's like you fast forward all these years and you look at Orange Cassidy. I don't like Orange Cassidy. Then it turns out, man, I actually do like Orange Cassidy. So my point that I'm trying to make is that, like, in wrestling, I've always been about storylines and characters, the good ones, the bad ones. That's just typically how I am as a viewer. So even to that kid's credit, when he said that to me, I was like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but just understand anytime you hear me say anything, just understand my core principle on my channel is that I care about storylines and I care about characters and I care about progression. I care about momentum. Those are the fundamentals to wrestling, in my opinion. So if you're somebody who thinks that wrestling doesn't matter or storylines don't matter, just understand everybody's going to have their own opinion on it. Every other person, I know some people, they watch reality TV just because it's entertaining. They obviously know that it's scripted, Some people watch wrestling for the simple fact that they just like watching people do high-flying moves. Everybody has a different preference. I'm not here to tell anybody what preference to have. I just say based on my preference, this is what I would do differently, or this is how to improve it, or whatever the case may be. With that being said, Albert, I want to just take a quick break. I'm going to put you on mute for just a moment because we got a super duper chat, which is a new thing on the channel this time around. So give me 1 second and I'll be right back, okay?
All right.
That's right, guys. We got a super duper chat, and this one came from Robin Plays Games. This is a very cool super duper chat. I'm trying to read the message, but Robin Plays Games decided not to put anything on the message other than pro wrestling. So shout out to Robin Plays Games for the $5 super duper chat. If you guys don't know what the super duper chat is, I'm going to throw you guys the link in the chat. Basically what a super duper chat is, for those who don't know, YouTube takes a pretty big cut out of super chats. So I teamed up with a company called Fourth Wall, and basically this company takes only 5% of all my donations. So basically what that means is when you donate to my channel, I just get a little bit more of a cut instead of YouTube taking it and doing nothing with it. So if you guys are interested in doing that, you don't have to do that. But if you guys are interested in doing that, that is right here. We also did get a new member. Negla K has become a member. Welcome to the level 2 club, Negla K. I will let you in, just like Bray Wyatt has said so. But other than that, shout out to Robin Plays Games for the super duper chat. Appreciate that. Guys, if you want to drop a super chat with any questions, I got Albert Ponce. He's one of the VIP members in the channel. He's calling in. So make sure if you guys get that super chat in, I'll even have Albert answer the question or comment as well. With that being said, let's get back to Albert Ponce. Albert. All right,
What's going on?
we got Albert back. Yay! What's up, buddy? Okay, cool. So I just want to kind of talk about some stuff. We had a super duper chat, and then we had a new member. I got these like new sound bites. So when we get a new member, it's Bray Wyatt with the "Let Me In." When we get a super chat, it's LA Knight. Yeah. And then when we get a new subscriber, it's Feed Me More by Ryback. Because obviously we're trying to hit 100,000 subscribers. So good reminder to anybody who's watching. And if you're not subscribed, click that subscribe button. We gained over 2,000 subscribers this month. This month is absolutely insane with viewership and growth. So shout out to everybody. Albert, I have to talk to you about Axiom and Nathan Frazier in that Battle Royal. Because I already gave my opinions on it. But I need to know from you, what did you think of that Battle Royal?
Oh, I mean, yeah, those two, I can watch them go at it, every week and I'll never get bored because, yeah, I mean, they have so much great chemistry together, and yeah, they definitely brought it. And like I said, that 5-way match for the North American title, that's going to be like my, that's the one I'm really, really looking forward to it because, yeah, I know that all 5 of them are just going to like destroy each other, for that title. And I can't wait.
What do you think? Oh, give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. I was just taking a look at my OBS. I was just making sure the stream's running still. So basically, continue.
Right. And so I do have one question,
Yeah.
you know, in regards to the Battle Royal. Apollo Crews, like where's he going next? You know, like since he's been back in NXT, you know, he chased the title for a while. He chased both titles, came up short, you know, had this match with, you know, Commander Aziz, lost to Commander Aziz, you know, and it looks like they still have some unresolved issues. But like I look at Apollo and he's another person that he has so much potential. He's had gold in the past. We know how good he is, but it just feels like he's another person to me that's just like there right now, you know. And I don't know, some of these people, it's just like I look at them and I know how great they can be, and I get it. I know that there are other people right now that are, you know, in a push, but you know, I look at him and I'm like, I can't see him just losing. And when you lose to Commander Aziz, and no offense to him, but you know, I mean, this guy's not really, you know, had wins like that. So when I see Apollo losing to him, I'm just like, I feel for the guy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran. He's in the veteran role. I think to a certain extent he does deserve better. I don't think timing right now makes sense. Whether you look at NXT or main roster, I think realistically it doesn't make sense for him. Dabba-Kato, Commander Aziz, he's the future, right? You look at guys like Omos, you look at guys like Braun Strowman, he's going to be in that role eventually. People forget about him during COVID era as well, right? With the pandemic when he was doing Raw Underground. There is a lot of potential with him, and I think the idea was for him to be established as a dominant guy. Now that Apollo Crews, I think what's going to happen is after this feud with Apollo Crews and Dabba-Kato, because eventually it's going to have to wrap up completely. But once it's completely done with, I think WWE is going to be in a situation where Apollo Crews could go ahead and flourish. Now, personally, what I would like to see is, I would like to see, just because of the wrestling styles and how good it would be, I would like Dragon Lee to win the North American Championship at the pay-per-view this weekend. Or PLE. I'm sorry, guys. Don't hate me for saying pay-per-view or PLE.
Yeah.
It's confusing, bro. Just in case, you know, I'm on Triple H's payroll. Got to make sure I abide by the rules, right? Wink,
Right.
wink. Just kidding. But I think I look at, you know, Dragon Lee winning that championship, give him a couple months with the title. He's going to need a credible name. So what I would do to solve the problem that you're talking about, because I do agree to a certain extent, maybe just have Apollo Crews move on from, you know, Commander Aziz or Dabba-Kato, whatever the hell they're calling him. And then as he picks up wins, gains a little bit of momentum, I would say at that point, if I'm WWE, you want a credible name to take the North American Championship away from Dragon Lee, you can give it to Apollo. You could actually have Apollo go heel. There's a lot that you can do. I just think it's a timing thing, though. What it really comes down to is timing, you know? He's another guy. You're right. He's another guy. But at the end of the day, what do? Everybody else is already doing something.
Right. No, definitely. And like I said, you know, it's just more of a frustration thing. I get how it goes, you know, and I understand. It's just one of those things, you know, I look at them like, ugh, you know, but, you know, we'll see, you know. One thing I will say that I don't want to see is what a lot of people say, that, oh, you know, we need another hour for this, another hour for that. We have 3 hours of Raw. I don't want to see any more time. You know, I'd rather just let the talent, you know, wait their time than, you know, have to do that. But a great idea that you said in the video earlier with, you know, like if NBC owned, you know, the WWE is, yeah, maybe put an emphasis on main event, make it a little bit more, you know, meaningful, showcase those dark matches more. And, you know, maybe that way you give talent more time. And also the same with Level Up. You know, I do watch it, you know, I have more time working from home than most people to watch all these shows like Dark and Dark Elevation. But, you know, I watch them, and a lot of times you will learn and, you know, find out about some of this new talent. So, you know, maybe you also give an emphasis on those shows as well to, you know, put talent over.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing too that it doesn't, you don't even have to wait for the sale of WWE, but I just think it makes more sense, you know, if NBC did own it. what's really cool about main event, and I don't know if people have noticed this, and you and I have a lot more time on our hands. For those who don't know, with me specifically, I have 2 monitors on my screen, or on my desk, and then I have my iPad out. So typically what I do when I'm working, because I do more than just upload videos to YouTube. I'm putting stuff on Spotify. I'm putting things on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, emails. I do a lot. So not only am I just making multiple videos per day, but I'm doing a lot of stuff. Plus I have more Ango and then Ango plays. I am strapped on time. However, on my iPad, that's where I typically have something playing in the background. And I will sometimes watch WWE main event every week because it's really cool to see what a main roster star looks like going up against an NXT star. So Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, seeing them perform in a bigger arena in front of a main event, not a main event, but in front of a main roster crowd, it's very cool to see what that looks like, because for so long we've been conditioned with these NXT talents to be working on at the Performance Center. So for me, I think like when I look at WWE, if they sold to NBC, NBC has so many smaller channels that they own. Comcast has so many channels that they own that are small. Don't even really worry about the TV ratings. You can put WWE main event, Saturdays at 6:05 if you want. And it could just be 2-3 matches. What I would do is 2-3 matches, have, maybe Kathy Kelly and somebody else like recap the week of Raw and SmackDown. I don't know if you remember Saturday Morning Slam. Yikes, bad. But yeah, kind of something like that. But you could put a little bit of emphasis with the storylines continuating from NXT or Raw, SmackDown. My point that I'm making is it's all about content, right? WWE, whoever owns them, they're going to want to keep pushing out content. That's the goal. I think if you're WWE, you're going to need platforms to do it. NBC probably offers the best situation for them. It's the best scenario. I think if you're WWE, you just have to do it, right? And it gives people an incentive to watch main event, especially if there's continuity within stories. Because one thing that you mentioned is AEW Dark. You watch it. The reason why I stopped watching Dark, it'll never be compelling. It's match after match after match after match after match. They have some stories develop on there, but there's no real emphasis on them because at the end of the day, it's just programming for AEW. It's a way for them to look at indie talent before they sign them. To me, it's bad programming. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely, it is. It is, and it's so easy how they can make those 2 shows meaningful, because you have Dark Elevation, which shows the dark matches from taping Dynamite. That right there, those matches right there should be progressing, continuing, or starting storylines between Dynamite and Rampage.
Yeah.
And then you have Dark that tapes in Orlando. That's where you should have the indie talent, unsigned people that you want to look at. And if you have Dark Elevation actually, parallel the main shows, you have a show on YouTube right there that can, work in your advantage. And it boggles me. And I've hated this about Tony Khan for so long because it's so easy to do and it's never been done. And it's one of 379 things wrong with AEW that I would want to fix if I could.
Yeah. I mean, there's things wrong with WWE too, but one thing I do want to point out, and I'm just going to be honest, like the biggest issue about AEW Dark, and the reason why I don't believe in Dark or Dark Elevation, is because Tony Khan is highlighting talent that aren't signed to his company. So when I look at it from that perspective, and I look at Fallon Henley, and I look at Kiana James, they're the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. And I think the future for them is very, very bright. I think there's a lot of potential for them. I think within time, they'll continue to develop and continue to get better. But I look at them as a very, very good example of people who appeared on AEW Dark and they weren't signed to AEW. They ended up signing to NXT. All AEW is doing when they have AEW Dark or Dark Elevation is that they are putting their content out there publicly for WWE. It's basically tryouts, right? Essentially, that's what it is. So they're publicly putting out those tryout matches and saying, hey, whoever's interested in these people that we might not sign, go ahead and sign them. And sometimes AEW is going to be in a situation where they're highlighting these talent. They don't want them. They didn't care to sign them. WWE picks them up and realizes they can actually do something with them. And if you look at it from the perspective of a developmental program, this is why I've always thought that AEW needs a developmental program, because look at WWE having developmental, right? Something happened with Harland. Harland's a perfect example. Harland was in NXT. There was huge plans for him. There was plans to even put him with the Judgment Day at one point. There was something with him and Edge, and there was a lot of big plans for him. WWE decided to cut him. We never really got to the full details as to why. There was something that was brought up, or something from his past, or something that was reported that he allegedly did, or something failed. I don't know what it was, but there was something that prevented him from being pushed on WWE programming. WWE cut ties with him. Then he goes to AEW as Parker Boudreaux. Yeah, AEW brought him in, but at the end of the day, that was somebody WWE didn't want. AEW Dark is highlighting talent that may not even be there for a potential contract with AEW. They might just simply be there to do the job. And my point that I'm making is, if WWE is looking at that talent and they're saying, hey, like, AEW probably doesn't have a plan with them, AEW doesn't have a plan to develop them, we'll do something. So WWE is automatically benefiting from having a developmental program, while AEW has a show where it's like, all right, go out there and wrestle, you know? And one thing I do want to point out with that too is, like, with AEW Dark and Dark Elevation, even if you put storylines on there, who really gives a shit about those storylines? Like, who really cares to watch Dark and Dark Elevation? Who cares? The reason why nobody cares is it's because AEW doesn't care. Those stories, and I will always say this, those stories that happen on Dark and Dark Elevation, Ethan Page and Matt Hardy, right? Perfect example. Like, I watch so many different wrestling shows per week. You're telling me I have to log on to YouTube to find out the story that you're now presenting on Dynamite? You're now presenting the storyline on Dynamite because Tony Khan liked it after seeing it on Dark, but you're expecting me to go back and find weeks of episodes on Dark to figure out what it is? It's bad storytelling. It's a lack of momentum. It's a lack of execution. This is the problem with AEW. They'll always have that problem. And realistically, Albert, I'm going to tell you, and I look at this, WWE sometimes can't develop people, right? Like, there's people we have seen that have failed in WWE. WWE is not perfect, but at least those people are contracted to WWE. Those people are contracted. Those people are paid by WWE to remain in WWE. WWE has a level of commitment to those people, whereas there's people in AEW who are appearing on Dark, and they're appearing on Dark Elevation, and they have zero commitment. So they're going out there, whether AEW likes them or not, it doesn't even matter. Plus, and that's just Dark and Dark Elevation, but look at Dynamite, right? What happened with Commander? Commander appears on Dynamite, has a really, really, really good match, showcase. 2 days later, there's reports that WWE wants to sign Commander. So at the end of the day, utilizing people who aren't contracted to the company is a massive mistake. It's a incredibly massive mistake. It only hinders the growth of AEW. And on top of that, you don't see WWE making that same mistake. So now I have to ask you, Albert, with AEW utilizing talent they don't sign, they eventually get picked up to WWE. WWE eventually puts title belts on them. At what point, if you're Tony Khan, do you say it is no longer worth putting talent on TV if they're not contracted to me?
Right. Yeah. And I think another great example is Nathan Frazier.
Perfect
He's
example.
another one that also was on TV. And I think this goes to a bigger issue with Tony Khan, which is something we were talking about on Twitter, with the whole backstage mess and everything, that, at some point, Tony Khan has to stop being a good friend to talent, because I think everyone loves the fact that, he does take care of, his people and everything, but at some point you have to actually be, a booker and think about your company first before anything else. And because, a lot of talent, Carmelo Hayes was someone who also had, an offer from AEW and went to WWE instead, and look at, how great he's doing now. So I think with Tony, he needs to be, and I don't want to say, you don't want to be like Vince, where you just like become authoritarian, but at some point you do need to start thinking about what is going to make your company succeed, because we see all the talk about, AEW is going to go down in 6 months, they'll be shut down by the summer, and same thing was always said about TNA. Here they are 20 years later. Yeah, but how many people do they draw? And so at one point, you, as Tony Khan, you have to ask yourself, if I don't stop and fix these little things that are going on, I could become Impact Wrestling. I could be the second biggest company, but if it's never going to be what it can be, what's the point? So I think that he just needs to be firm, aggressive, and really just like be a boss. You can be a good boss, you could be a friendly boss, but you have to be a boss sometimes, and really, and I see somebody in the chat, where's Bandito? And you and I have talked about Bandito, and this issue of people like Bandito is one of the things that he needs to work on too. Hiring people that spend 80% of their time under contract working indies instead of working for the company they're signed to. These are all different things that keep hindering AEW. And as long as things like this happen, yeah, you're going to keep getting an hour TV here. You're going to get a reality show. You're going to sign people, but you're never going to ever get to where you can. And at some point, that's going to be a crutch more than, just an annoyance.
I will say this too, to kind of answer all of that. I don't have an issue with Tony Khan. I've said publicly so many times, I think Tony Khan is somebody who genuinely loves this business.
Yes.
Fans have a hard time respecting and understanding why somebody like Tony Khan is a businessman, because they just want him to be a fan and that's it. But he's a businessman at the end of the day. He's a businessman. And I want to make it very clear, at the end of the day, as a businessman, Tony Khan has to make business decisions, okay? He has to make business decisions. Not just the CM Punk stuff, not just the Elite, but everybody. And I think Tony Khan, for some reason, he is so focused on a very, very small percentage of his roster that everybody else he is signing to keep them. And I had a conversation with a good friend of mine this past weekend, and we talked about this. WWE signing Karrion Kross, Bronson Reed, all of these names. Yeah, eventually they'll do something with them and whatever. They want them. But we're now in the era of companies signing talent just to keep them, and that's it, to have the rights to them. And WWE obviously wants to prevent AEW from signing more people. So again, at the end of the day, it begs me to question, why is AEW featuring non-contracted talent on their programming when at the end of the day, WWE is just trying to sign talent to keep them away from AEW? That's literally the plan, right? It's clear as day. That's why they do it. So ultimately, it's going to end with one thing, and that's AEW closing up AEW Dark and Dark Elevation, or only using contracted talent, which for some reason, I don't think Tony Khan's going to do that.
Right. Yeah. And that's why it's always going to keep them from, getting better.
100%. It's always going to be their crutch. It's always
right.
It's always going to be the thing that hurts them. It's always going to be the thing that stops them from growing. It's always going to be the thing that stops them from truly doing something right with their roster. We did get a couple super chats, so I want to get your opinion on some of these. Justin Kennington dropped a $5 super chat while we were talking. He says, when Bron loses the title, would WWE turn him heel when he goes to the main roster to refresh his character? Albert, I'll let you answer that first, and then I'll throw in my 2 cents.
So I remember when he was brought up to SmackDown a couple of times and the reaction that he got. I think he can come in as a babyface, but he really needs to be committed to who he is. He has to make sure that he's good on the mic, that his promos are good, because if not, the fans, I can see the fans, like souring on him. The easy way is to just bring him up as a heel, and he could just, be, a monster, and that's great. But, you want to see what he can do on the main roster. You want to see if he has, that potential to be a world champion, to carry the brand down the line, and being able to, get over with the crowd without just, being, a typical heel, would be something that I would want to see, from him if he can pull it off.
Yeah. So for those who missed it, we're addressing a super chat from Justin Kennington. when Bron Breakker loses the title, would WWE turn him heel when he goes to the main roster to refresh his character? And this is actually a really good question, because I look at Bron Breakker kind of like what Albert just said. You know, he very well there's a very big possibility that the WWE fans could become sour with him. And the more and more that I think about this, I think that's very well possible. I think if Bron Breakker goes into the main roster as a heel, I think it could automatically help WWE's audience get accustomed to a guy who's not being forced down their throat, right? We have seen time and time again, Bron Breakker has been forced down people's throats in NXT. If that happens on the main roster, he's going to get rejected. Now, I think Bron Breakker going into NXT, stand and deliver as the man, as the good guy, losing the belt, and then going to Raw or SmackDown as the ultimate bad guy, that has to come with some changes. So one of those changes that I would make is, the name is fine, but I want to see a little bit more of the Steiner in him, if that makes sense. That's something I think that's really important. You know, I think Steiner, I know his name is Bron Breakker, but at the end of the day, he's a Steiner. He's got that Steiner blood. I want to see that part of his presentation. So for me personally, to answer your super chat, Justin, I think a heel turn would make sense. And just like Albert says, I think him being a babyface will just get people to sour on him relatively quickly. I don't think he has the personality to be a bubbly babyface. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong. I just think it's better suited for him originally to be a heel. I also want to kind of throw out this idea that maybe shout out to Baby Ice for subscribing to the channel. I just want to throw out this idea. It wouldn't be a bad idea for Bron Breakker to join. Oh my gosh. Thank you to George Canella for the subscription. Appreciate that too. Ryback's all in my ear while I'm talking. It's crazy. But back on track. I wouldn't mind seeing Bron Breakker move up to the main roster in a heel faction. I know this is random. Maybe it's Fantasyland booking. I don't really care. When Bron loses a title in NXT, if he goes to the main roster as a babyface, yeah, I think we're all very clear. The crowd will probably not enjoy his babyface run. It's WWE's job to make sure that they don't sour on him. But already after 2 years of being in NXT, it's pretty much like the Roman Reigns, John Cena situation where this guy is the guy, right? So I would like to see WWE do something a little bit different. I would have Bron Breakker go into the main roster as a heel, somewhat similar to the Shield. I know that sounds crazy, but if you could try to model his career like Roman Reigns, minus all the shoving down somebody's throat, it could work out pretty well. Right? No? Maybe?
Who would you see with him in a faction?
I haven't thought that far.
Okay.
However, hold on. Cameron Grimes is looking pretty beefy these days. So I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it could work. You know, I could see, and that's why I said, I was asking if you had anybody, because it could work. I think with Bron also, especially in the beginning, another thing that's going to definitely benefit him is making sure who you put him in feuds with. You don't want somebody that is going to engage him in promos, and expose him. You want to make sure that you put him in feuds where you're highlighting that he's a monster, he's strong, he's a beast, so definitely who he, starts competing with on the main roster in the beginning should definitely be something that's, taken into consideration when dealing with him.
Yeah, so just to throw this out there, some people in chat, Real Take Wrestling says Breakker, Grimes, and Hayes. Normally, I would agree with this, but Carmelo Hayes is likely going to be the next NXT champion, in my opinion. That's my belief. So I would be cool with Breakker. I'd be cool with Grimes. Grimes is completely repackaged at this point, shaved his beard. He looks stronger. I'm just trying to think, is there any other names that you could think of that'd be cool with them? Because, actually, want to point this out too. When he goes on the main roster, regardless of faction or no faction, right? Obviously, we're fantasy booking, but if he's on the main roster, he'll probably beat up Dolph Ziggler. He'll probably beat up some other people. You know what I mean? But other than that, I don't know. Bron Breakker's main roster booking is one that truly intrigues me. It kind of scares the hell out of me too. I'm not gonna lie.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because I mean, how you present him is definitely going to be, important for him. as he, gets acclimated into the main roster. So I definitely think that, yeah, you want to make him a heel. You don't want to make him indestructible per se,
Yeah.
like a undefeated streak or anything like that, but you definitely, you want to make him a heel, excuse me, that, definitely plays off of his, his strengths. But hey, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, hit me.
So this is concerning Bray Wyatt. So you dropped in one of your videos where the WWE had, passed on Vincent and Dutch,
Yeah.
coming into the company. So so I'm thinking, Bo Dallas, Eric Redbeard,
Mm-hmm.
are two people that definitely, I know Bray had said were people he wanted to work with, but if you bring in Alexa, that's still only four. So, are there two people on the roster right now that you look at that you can see being a part of the Bray Wyatt six, where it actually makes sense and, can make the faction, if they do present it, work in a good way?
Yeah, so I mean, I throw Cameron Grimes in the mix because I think he's shown us historically through his work in TNA, Impact, and then WWE, and the Indies. I think Cameron Grimes is very, 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 very multi-dimensional in terms of acting skills and wrestling skills. So Cameron Grimes, I feel like, could pull it off. So that's for sure one. I think Liv Morgan could be another person that could pull it off. I just don't want to see this being super what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't want to see this being like a what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't want it to be like supernatural, if that makes sense. I really want them to stay away from the supernatural stuff. So in my opinion, Cameron Grimes, Liv Morgan, they would be great in that role. If they're doing the supernatural stuff, absolutely not. Hell no. I don't want to see that. I think Eric Redbeard makes a lot of sense. I'm just going to call him Eric Rowan because there's no chance in hell he'll be known as Eric Redbeard in WWE if he returns.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say, which would be kind of intriguing to me, and I don't know if WWE would do this because it's kind of a 180 based on the plans from NXT, but I do like Joe Gacy a lot. And I do think Joe Gacy, I see a lot of people, they're trying to compare Schism to the Judgment Day or to Bray Wyatt type stuff, and it's not the same. It's not the same. So the thing about Joe Gacy, though, is I think it's relatively close to where he could pull it off. It would just mean that he would have to leave Schism. And I don't know if that sounds realistic, but I would love to see Joe Gacy part of it, because if you're trying to create future stars, you can always revert to a feud where you have Joe Gacy ultimately defeating The Fiend. Not soon, but whenever they're ready to pull the plug on Bray Wyatt, or whenever Bray Wyatt's ready to retire, like Joe Gacy versus Bray Wyatt could be like a really cool storyline. But again, that's more of like really, really fantasy booking,
Right. Yeah. Because obviously with Schism, you do have a stable in place. What about Eric Young? Is he actually signed to the company? And if he is, are they looking to bring Sanity back, or is he someone that could potentially slide into the Bray Wyatt mix as well?
Yeah. So I think from my understanding, right? This is my understanding. I'm not confirming anything. I'm just giving you guys my understanding of things that I've heard. I've heard that Eric Young is in the same situation as Chelsea Green and Bronson Reed, meaning they signed with WWE a month or two prior to actually coming back on television, and it was just a matter of time until they started doing stuff on TV. With that being said, if Eric Young is in that situation, same boat, right? If that's actually true, I think Eric Young is probably being saved for Sanity. However, maybe Sanity is not the plan, and maybe Nikki Cross and Eric Young could be part of the Wyatt Six instead of Alexa Bliss, or whatever it may be. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I could see something very much being like that, where Eric Young and Nikki Cross could be together with Bray. I could see them doing their own thing. It's something to definitely pay attention to, because Sanity being on WWE's main roster, I think would be good. But also at the same time too, Eric Young is not and I say this in like the most respectful way possible, but I don't see him in a situation where it's like this guy's going to be the world champion. You know, I don't think that makes sense for him, but I could see his faction being a good thing for WWE. So I would say at this stage of the game, I would have Eric Young come back and be part of TV, but I don't want him to be getting priority over somebody like Karrion Kross, for example. That's kind of important to mention too, because Karrion Kross is somebody who his main roster run hasn't been terrible, but it hasn't been absolutely incredible. So I'm hoping post WrestleMania they could do something to shake it up. So I don't know. That's a very interesting question, though.
Right. Yeah. And Cross is another one. I mean, he's someone who I feel like he hasn't connected with the crowd the way, like, if you know Cross from Lucha Underground, MLW, you know, other promotions where he's gotten that crowd reaction. I don't see that he's gotten it yet. And I don't know if it's, you know, necessarily a booking thing or the crowd just not clicking with him, you know, because they just don't like him. But, you know, he's definitely someone that, you know, I want to see get a push in 2023, because he's definitely someone that, you know, you can definitely have featured in, you know, US title picture, Intercontinental title picture, you know, world title. You know, he can, you know, work with big guys, small guys, you know, and definitely deserves, you know, a push as well.
I think Karrion Kross is definitely getting pushed this year. WWE has just been scratching the surface with him. He got the big wins. His booking hasn't been bad, thankfully. They still have him being somewhat relevant, if that makes sense. It just takes a little bit of time for it to catch on. I would definitely say it's not a failure. I would just say it's not a success. It's just one of those things where they haven't done him wrong. They just got to find something that works in the meantime. They're not burying him by any means, which is a good thing, because whenever they figure it out, they could just keep it up. You know what I mean? With Karrion Kross, as far as crowd reactions go, I think it's very much in the sense of his in-ring ability is good. His storytelling and character stuff is good, but how does it really differ from other things that we're seeing? And I think Karrion Kross is great. I think WWE will figure it out. I think he also needs to be on Raw specifically, because I think there's just better opponents for him to work with on Raw. Not to change the topic, but we had to change the topic because we got a $4.99 super chat from Zachary. I've been trying to get through these super chats. We're just having great conversation, guys, here on Angomania. It's the WrestleMania spectacle. Zachary dropped a $4.99 super chat and said, is it possible that Brian Cage drops the belts on Friday and shows up at Mania the next day? Commander is very amazing. Shame that AEW hasn't signed him. So two things. Commander is currently signed to a company. I forgot the name of it, but it's in Mexico. It's not hitting my mind right now, but that is something that is being said. He is currently under a deal. Whether it's a long-term deal or not, I don't know. As far as Brian Cage goes, my opinion is that Brian Cage showing up at Mania is definitely not possible in terms of wrestling or on stage. However, I do want to point this out. And Albert, I want to know what you think. Zachary, I apologize for taking a minute to get to your super chat, but I want to also make sure my opinion on this is good. And I think this is good. If Brian Cage is leaving AEW ROH and he drops the titles, I suspect that Brian Cage will be sitting in the crowd at WrestleMania or sitting in the crowd at NXT Stand and Deliver or WWE WrestleMania at some point. I would like to see WWE acknowledge, if there's any signings whatsoever, I would like to see them acknowledging them in the crowd like they typically do at takeover shows. So, again, this hasn't been confirmed that Brian Cage is going anywhere. Brian Cage is also a nobody in the grand scheme of things in regards to the WWE main roster, because Brian Cage isn't even on AEW Dynamite that often. So, these people really probably don't know Brian Cage. I think Brian Cage will be incredible in WWE. I think they'll do a lot of great things with Brian Cage. If he, in fact, leaves, it would be cool to show him in the crowd. He doesn't have to wrestle. He doesn't have to get physical. But WWE typically does that thing where they mention the talent in the crowd at NXT takeovers. It'd be really nice if Triple H did that as well for WrestleMania or for NXT. You know, same thing with call-ups, right? Like if you want to call somebody up for after the main roster, have some of those NXT talent sit in the crowd. Put the nameplate up, you know. Have commentary, give them a shout-out. Those are small little things I typically like to see. I think WWE wants Brian Cage. Hopefully that answers your question, Zachary. Thank you for the super chat. Albert, what do you think? Do you think Brian Cage could show up in WWE this weekend?
I mean, I think it's possible, absolutely. And, being someone who remembers watching him in Impact, I would love to see him and Bobby Lashley go at it again on Monday Night Raw. I think that those two can have great matches together. And he could have a lot of great matches in the WWE, definitely. I think with him and Bobby Lashley, the promos may not be the best, but definitely the action would be insane. Because, if you've seen Brian Cage wrestle, the guy has superhuman strength. He can, do suplexes, from guys being on the floor and lift them all the way up over the ring, into the ring, that he's that crazy, so, but, again, yeah, even if he stays in ROH AEW, what has he really done? He's been wrestling more. He's a champion, but, for me, it's more like, really too little, too late. You didn't pull the trigger when you had the opportunity to have him be Wardlow or Hobbs back when he was hot in AEW.
How are we going to talk shit about the women's tag team division in WWE when other promotions have championship belts that are hardly defended as well, and that's how I think,
absolutely.
That's how I feel about Brian Cage and the 6-man tag championship belts and everything he's done in AEW. It's AEW, again, putting them on TV with no direction, no plans. And it's like, it's unbelievable in my opinion, to see that firsthand and to see that Brian Cage in Impact Wrestling. Please, guys, I urge you to go back and watch him and Bobby Lashley. I urge you to go back and watch Brian Cage when he was Impact World Champion. Like, people used to watch that, by the way, and say, this guy would be really good in WWE, and this guy would be really good in AEW. And he goes to AEW, and they don't do shit with him. I'm sorry, man, but it just don't work out like that. You can't sign people, put them on TV once in a while, and then hope everything is good. Brian Cage, regardless of what he wants to do, that's up to him. I can't speak for Brian Cage, how he personally feels, anything like that. But all I know is I read reports that WWE was interested in him, and after Supercard of Honor, supposedly, allegedly, reportedly, he won't be under contract. So in my opinion, you have him get off a contract, make the move to WWE or make the move to Impact. At that point, you have nothing to lose. You already know how Impact treated you before. You already know that you would be accepted in Impact. You don't know what it's going to be like in WWE, but ultimately, why not try and see what happens? Because you've already done AEW and it hasn't really been that special. That's just my opinion. I think Brian Cage is a hell of a talent. I hope something happens with him to the point where we get to see more of him. Tony Khan clearly ain't making that happen. And listen, if he keeps the championship belts at ROH, I wish I can tell you guys it means something, but guess what? Brian Cage signed to AEW, not ROH. So the fact is, if he's just going to be one of those talent that are floating around the two shows, what benefit is that? There is no benefit to that. And I'm sorry, but Ring of Honor, and I like Ring of Honor, and I've been very impressed so far as of late with Ring of Honor. The first 3 episodes have been pretty damn solid. It's not perfect, but it's solid. I would even go as far as saying as ROH is a little bit better than AEW in certain regards. But if I was a talent,
like the fact that they have storylines,
yeah,
that's insane.
But listen,
that's insane.
It is. But listen to this, man. If I'm Brian Cage and I signed to AEW, and like this is just reality, right? But if I'm Brian Cage and I'm in AEW and I signed to be on AEW only for my boss to be like, well, hey, I just bought another wrestling company. Do you want to go work for that company? Do people understand how silly it is now that Tony Khan owns Ring of Honor? Like, Ring of Honor, from like a business perspective, like if you're a talent, Ring of Honor has about 12 to 15,000 paid subscriptions for Watch ROH, Honor Club, right? AEW Dynamite gets close to 1 million viewers every month, plus more, after DVR and all that stuff. So if I'm a talent and I sign with AEW and I'm barely on AEW, but then I have this idea presented to me to go to ROH and the viewership is low, like what benefit do you get out of it? And again, I can't speak for talent. I can only speak for myself. I'm just looking at purely at numbers. Pay me my money and put me on TV. That's it. Win or lose, I don't care, but put me on TV and pay me my money. I wouldn't want to be on ROH, to be honest, because only 12,000 people, 12 to 15,000 people have access to watch me. You know what I mean? People aren't going to feel the same way about me if I'm on there versus Dynamite. Because if I'm on Dynamite and I have great matches, I'm increasing my stock. Which, by the way, when I'm a free agent, right? And I can only speak what I would do. But if I was a free agent and I've increased my stock by being on AEW television every single week, I'm then going to position myself in a scenario where I can say, I want more money or I'm going to go to the WWE.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, with all things considered in wrestling, if I'm Brian Cage right now today, the best move for me probably would be Impact. I mean, Josh Alexander, unfortunately, injured,
Yep.
had to give up the title. So you have history in Impact. You have the world champion go down. So there's a spot there, I mean, yeah, you can go to WWE. We don't know how you get treated. We know in Impact, you go in there, you're sliding right into the, title picture right off the bat, given your history with the company, So there are a lot of options for him. But yeah, definitely, I think that if I'm going to stay in Ring of Honor, then yeah, I would either look at Impact or WWE or just hit the indies until, something, comes my way, and then I decide then.
Yeah. I mean, really. My bad. I'm just responding to a message on my phone.
No, that's all right.
But no, I mean, you make a really good point. Just looking at the chat too, Todd Crow says he would love to see Brian Cage in WWE. Negla K says Cage has lackluster time in AEW and ROH. Can't really argue with that. Like, I mean, everybody kind of, I think everybody kind of agrees with Brian Cage. It's so unfortunate, honestly. But one thing I do want to point out too is like WWE and AEW, and it goes back to what I said earlier about like signing people for no reason. Tony Khan definitely signs people for no reason. In my opinion, that's the way it looks. I think he signs people for no reason. He signs them to keep them, just like WWE does the same thing. They think eventually they'll do something. They don't do something. Brian Cage didn't have something going for him. Then there was the reports of backstage heat because of his wife, which I thought that was silly to begin with, but dirt sheets and the reports that they come out with sometimes, man, they're just ridiculous. But nonetheless,
right.
that apparently ruined his chances of anything. Then all of a sudden, ROH is a thing. I don't know. I don't really want to speculate on Brian Cage's future, but I do want to say Brian Cage is a hell of a talent, and he deserves better than what he's getting right now. That's it. Simple as that.
Absolutely. And sadly, that's a big issue with a lot of talent in AEW/ROH. It's really unfortunate. And it's mind-boggling because, I mean, you look at it, they're getting more time from Warner Brothers Discovery. So that your company is behind you, your boss is behind you. That should be the incentive to make things work. That should be what motivates you to, start things going in the right direction. We're going to have a show on Saturday. It may be live. It may not be live. We already have Rampage, which is taped, so I mean, it just, all these things just like, it's like Tony takes a step forward and then has to automatically take two back before he can take that next step forward again.
Oh, I mean, 100%, dude. We already knew that, though. He always does that. Tony Khan always does that. AEW always does that. But the thing is, lately, AEW's been on fire, too. So it's like, I just want to see them, like, they're on fire because they're putting out good stories, but it still doesn't change the fact that they've signed so many people in the last 2 years and they just don't get used. They have no momentum. Where's Bandito? Where's all of these people? And we keep addressing this, and it's like, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about Jay White, and it goes back to what I was saying about Brian Cage, and it goes back to what I've said about so many individuals. It's like, damn, like, a lot of my favorite wrestlers are getting brought into AEW. Nothing happens with them. Andrade, Miro, and it's like, I don't know, man. It gets kind of frustrating. I looked at NXT tonight, and I was like, damn, they have a really solid roster. And just because they're solid right now doesn't mean they're going to work out in the end. And it sucks, but that's the truth. But at least with WWE having 3 television shows, they have 7 hours worth of programming on TV. They have so many people on TV. I know some people won't work out in the future, but at least people are on TV. You know, we can decide, the crowd can decide who's going to work or not. In AEW, they don't have that benefit because people don't get the TV time. So you can't even say who's going to work out or not because they're not given the opportunity. And we're not talking about low level, low talent, lack of talent. We're not talking about some scrubs, dude. We're talking about top talent, guys who held championship belts in WWE. We're talking about talent who have held championship titles and world titles in Impact. And we're seeing people that are just not utilized correctly. It's always going to be frustrating. People are going to think I'm hating on AEW when I talk about this, but like that's my biggest complaint because the storytelling, it's the same thing with WWE, right? WWE, good stories, bad stories, but they're telling stories. They're trying to, at least. They're trying to figure things out. You can't be perfect 365 days out of the year. You can't. It's just not possible. There's 52 weeks in a year, you know, 1 or 2 shows a week. It's going to be very difficult to do that level of content and be at your A game every single time. I get that. But at least, at the very minimum, WWE is putting people on TV, and week to week there's consistency. And with AEW, they don't do that. And that's my biggest gripe about them, because I can forgive you if your storytelling isn't at its best. I can forgive you if your show is lackluster at times, because you can make up for it the next week. You can make up for it with social media content. You can make up for it with pay-per-views. You can make up for it. You can figure it out. You're still a relatively young company. But to sign talent that are former champions and to see that they're not being utilized correctly, that's always going to be my biggest gripe about that company. And until they fix that, I can't really sit here and tell you that I'll ever be excited about AEW. I can't. And it's the same thing, just so I put this out on record. I'm happy that Commander gets to fight against Vikingo at Supercard of Honor. Both of these guys aren't contracted to Tony Khan. They're not contracted to AEW. They're not contracted to ROH. Tony Khan did this as a desperation move because he is competing with SmackDown and he's competing with the Hall of Fame and he's competing with WrestleMania weekend, which, by the way, GCW has like 1 million events. All these other indies have 1 million events. He put 2 non-contracted talent in this major, massive, incredible matchup, which it will deliver. It will be an incredible match. I will talk about it in my review and I'll be happy with it. But it doesn't change the fact that this guy has talent who have not been used for months and months and months, and this is the result. And I'm sorry, but the fact is people are defending this, but I can't defend that. As a wrestling fan, I can't defend that. And if you care about my opinion, you can take it for what it is. You don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree. I just know that I got really excited every single time Tony Khan announced a new debut. And every single time he announced a new debut, they lost momentum. And I look at NXT, and I look at what I saw tonight with Carl Fredericks, right? I saw what he did tonight as Eddie Thorpe, and I was excited because I'm like, yeah, I know I can trust WWE to utilize him on a week-to-week basis. That's it. Simple as that. I'm not asking WWE to put him as world champion. I'm not like other fans where I have this expectation for him. I just want to see him every week. That's it. I know WWE will do it because they do it with all their talent. There's continuity, right? With AEW, they don't do that. And until they fix that, I really cannot sit here and say I enjoy AEW. I can't. Their shows have been good lately, but it doesn't change the fact that next week or 2 weeks from now, AEW will tease a new signing, and guess what? The same thing will happen over and over and over and over again. And I don't, look, my reach is pretty, I have a couple million views a month. TikTok's doing great. YouTube's doing great. All of these things are great. I don't have 1 million plus views every single day, but I get millions of views per month. At the end of the day, I have a pretty decent audience. I don't try to change anybody's opinion about wrestling, but there's going to be a lot of people who hate on me for calling it like I see it. And at the end of the day, I don't care because I went to AEW events. I've enjoyed their shows. I pay money to go there. I enjoy watching their product at times. Sometimes they have really good stories. Sometimes they have really bad stories. But the one mistake that they constantly make is not putting people on TV. And then when people hit you back and say, Google them or watch them on Dark, I don't know how crazy that sounds. Because if WWE signed Jay White and told you, hey, go watch YouTube, there would be massive outrage. And I'll leave it at that.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. I think that, another thing that could potentially help AEW, and it will depend on how they film this, but you're going to have a great opportunity with this Saturday show. You're going to get an hour show. Are you going to take this 1 hour to showcase talent that should be showcased, or are you going to waste the hour with the Jericho Appreciation Society again, with Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett again, with the same people? Because, getting this show, if you can actually sit there and give that time to other talent, and you can start building stories, and you can start, weaving the shows together and making sense of it, you can have a great tool there. But if you put the same people, then we're just having 3 shows with the same 5% of talent, and that can turn around and really, hurt the product, if you do that. So I'm going to be very curious as to how, this show is presented, because now if you have 3 shows, even though 2 of them are an hour and the other one, Dynamite is 2 hours, at this point, there should be some kind of, maybe not if you don't want to do a brand split, but there should be some kind of emphasis where there's, meanings to the shows, why we're tuning into them every week. What's this show giving me that Rampage isn't, or that Dynamite isn't, so
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Can I ask you though, honest to God, Rampage, nobody cares about Rampage. What makes you think people will care about the 3rd show?
No, of course, no, and that's another thing, so imagine you put this show on Saturday and somehow it gets more views than your 2nd show on Friday. How does that make Rampage look? This is supposed to be SmackDown to Raw, and you can't even keep it on a consistent time. You can't keep consistent ratings, and I'm still trying to figure out why it's still on Fridays and 10 o'clock. If you had no problem putting Ring of Honor, even though it's online, if you had no problem putting that on Thursday, knowing that it's going to go against Impact, a company you have a quote-unquote working relationship with, why couldn't Rampage have been put on a Thursday a long time ago to give it, a better opportunity to be seen and presented in a better light to fans? Clearly, if you're putting Ring of Honor out there, it's no different really than Impact. You're competing against them. So why wasn't Rampage like that?
Bro,
it makes no sense.
You're spitting fire right now, just so you know.
And it's mind-boggling. For a while, I thought that maybe it was because of not wanting to conflict with Impact. But once Ring of Honor went on, I'm like, wait, what's going on here?
I can't speak for Tony Khan, and I can't speak for Warner Brothers Discovery. I could see that being a decision that maybe they made, like the TV network, And I'm not saying Rampage is a failure by any means. I'm just clearly telling everybody what I know as a fan. There's clearly less emphasis on Rampage than there is Dynamite. You can tell by the fact that it's pre-taped. You can tell by the fact that the stories, if there are any stories that are on there, you can tell about the roster that's used for it. You can tell that typically Rampage is the B show. And that's a really unfortunate thing because it's 1 hour, it's pre-taped, it's spoiled. People don't stay for the entire thing when they're at Dynamite. They typically leave at Dynamite. I'm not talking about anything other than what I personally saw when I was at AEW in Detroit. When they taped for Rampage, I saw firsthand how people left for Rampage. They didn't care for Rampage. People genuinely don't care for Rampage, right? It's not the same. Like WWE has an A show and the B show and they have a C show. But the people who like to watch WWE are going to watch WWE. The people who can watch WWE will watch WWE. People who want to watch AEW Dynamite don't necessarily want to watch Rampage. So I think if you look at Thursday night, right, and that time slot, Rampage would be a lot more successful live on that time slot. It would be.
Right.
Rampage, see, the thing is, ROH is pre-taped. It's on Ring of Honor, Honor Club. It could be a Friday 10 p.m. time slot on the app. It could be at any time, technically. You could put it whenever. There's no ads. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it at the end of the day because there's no TV deal. It's like me starting my own promotion and being like, hey, I'm going to throw it up at whatever time. You know what I mean? Rampage is the one that struggles. Why not give it a better time slot? Again, I don't know if that's a Warner Media Discovery thing, whatever. But when I look at WMD as a TV partner, I think they've been really, really good to AEW. I think they do a lot of great things for AEW. But I also cannot understand for the life of me why we've gotten to a point where Rampage plays second fiddle and then there's talks of a third show. And I'm not even talking about ratings, because again, ratings, I don't care. Ratings are fine for Rampage, but just in general, there's less from like a television standpoint. You could tell it takes a backseat to everything else. And when that's the case, why would you introduce more content when people don't care about that one in the first place?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would just, rather, and I've seen people talk about it, and I agree. I would rather than put a show on Saturday, I would add the hour to Rampage, make it live, and find a good spot for it. Because obviously Fridays, and you're not going to put it against SmackDown, obviously, but 10 o'clock, it's never good. Sometimes I may go out and, tape SmackDown because, I'm going out, so Rampage is always going to take that, backseat always. But, we'll see. Once the Saturday show happens, who knows? Maybe Saturday works out and you get rid of Rampage and you make the Saturday show 2 hours live. Who knows? Maybe that works for them on a Saturday.
Yeah. Really quick, we just got a super chat from Jason Martinez for $5. Yeah. He says, thank you, Ango. I missed your videos. After Cody left, it dropped. Instead of replacing, it was like a breakup. TK went for the shiny new show, ROH and Wardlow. I'm not going to lie, I just read this message, and I don't know if it's because I've been streaming for almost 3 hours, but that has, respectfully, I don't know what you're trying to say, Jason. I'm not going to lie. But also, I will say this. I think from what I'm reading, it sounds like AEW has kind of dropped the ball after Cody left. And if that's what I'm guessing, if I'm guessing correctly, I would agree with that. I think after Cody left, AEW lost a lot of its flavor. I think AEW has definitely lost its potential. What's the word? Not potential. I think AEW lost a lot of its flavor. I think AEW lost a lot of its momentum. I think AEW lost the glue that keeps things together. I think it goes to show you how instrumental Cody Rhodes was in AEW. But also, I look for Tony Khan, and I look what he did. Yeah, it was a really cool moment. I will never forget this, Albert. Listen, he goes live on TV, starts off AEW, and announces the sale of Rampage. You remember this, right? And not the sale. I'm sorry. He announces the sale of ROH, right?
Right.
What the hell happened after? Just like every other announcement, every signing, everything, he got a whole bunch of people to watch his show. Good promoter, promoting the show, getting people excited. That's great. And then nothing happened. I'm sorry, but that just, I can, listen, guys, I can sit here and make a very cool announcement. Guys, tune into a major announcement tomorrow. Then I make the announcement and I tell you guys, hey guys, I launched new emojis in my live chat. That's not a major announcement. We know that. Right?
Right.
It's minuscule. Yeah. It doesn't really do anything different for me. Like, maybe it's a shitty ass comparison, but my point that I'm trying to make is it's like baiting people into a great announcement and it could be cool, and then next thing you know, there's no delivery. ROH was a big, big mistake for Tony Khan. Good for him. He owns the tape library. I'm glad for that. I understand ROH has always been a very, very, very hardcore niche audience. I understand that as well. But I just want to make it very clear, AEW dropped the ball with a lot more than just Cody leaving. And it wasn't just ROH either. Wardlow was a great example. A lot of talent signed with the company. Bandito signed with the company. Nobody gets used. I mean, there's so much.
Scorpio Sky has been missing for how long now?
Yeah. Scorpio Sky was injured. No updates on him. Nobody talks about him. Nobody's asking about him at the media scrums. I don't know. And it sucks because Scorpio Sky, I mean, I don't know if you remember specifically, but I would talk about all the time where I was like, Scorpio Sky should be a world champion. He's good enough. He should be the guy. They should do it. And they never did. And then it's like I look at AEW, man, and I just think, like, I just think like, wow, like that guy's been there since day one and they still didn't utilize him correctly. And it's a freaking mind-boggling situation. I'll always be pissed because, again, it kind of relates back to everything I said about NXT tonight. There's things that are cringy about NXT, but at least every single week there's a plan, there's a vision, there's a process, there's things that are happening every single week. It's like you understand what's going on by watching every single week. And I'm sorry, but anybody who sits here and tells me that AEW is better than WWE, it's like, stop the tribalism for a second. If you think they're better, that is completely fine. I'm not telling you you can't think they're better. But if you're sitting here talking about storytelling and consistency and momentum, there is clearly a huge gap between WWE and AEW. And I'm telling you this, Albert. I talked about this with my cousin this past weekend. He would kind of tend to lean more towards AEW versus WWE. That's just kind of how he was. He always liked the big wrestling matches. But he says, he's like, man, he's like, I was listening to your video and you were talking about how in 2019, 2020, and 2021, there was just a lot of stories. He's like, I can't really tell you that many stories in AEW. And then I asked him, I was like, well, what do you think about QT Marshall and his storyline? And he's like, I kind of like it. He's like, I kind of like it. I'm like, I do too, right? Like, I think it's a cool idea to make fun of dirt sheets, and, you know, QT Marshall's the perfect guy for it. I think Powerhouse Hobbs, now that I'm watching it more often, it's like, okay, I'm cool with it. But my cousin, he says, he's like, yeah, but he's like, they announced the split of the Nightmare Factory, like, as if we were supposed to care. But they never did anything to make us care about the Nightmare Factory. Like, it doesn't matter, you know? There's a lot of things that happen without explanation, but it doesn't matter because the things that they're dropping don't necessarily have any plans or vision behind it. So I just look at AEW as a company that could put on really good matches, and that's fine if you're into that type of thing. But when it comes to creating compelling television, they got to do a lot more than what they've been doing. And these last 2 weeks that they've had, yes, it's been really, really good TV, and I'm super excited about tomorrow night. I'm super excited for AEW tomorrow night. But also at the same time, too, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that AEW is killing it because, truth be told, they're ass. They're ass. They're not that great. The storytelling's bad, and it sucks because there's a lot of great, talented people there. I'm glad they're getting paid. I'm glad that AEW exists. I think first and foremost, it's so important that they exist. But to sit here and act like their stories or their wrestling or their shows have been great, their business decisions have been great, they're not. And it's not possible for Tony Khan, in my opinion, to sit here and truly make AEW a desirable wrestling product when I look at ROH. And I'm looking at ROH being like, wow, like there's a lot of great things about ROH. But it's a separate company technically. But it's not, because from a business side of things, it never made sense to be a separate company. It's just a third brand for AEW. So you're telling me Tony Khan is going to have AEW Dynamite, Rampage, Dark Elevation, ROH, and potentially the third show, which is AEW Collision. That's 6 shows that we're talking about. And you're telling me this guy still struggles? He's struggling with Dynamite sometimes. How is he going to be able to perfect 5 other shows? That's a difficult task at hand.
Not only that, but you're going to have 5 shows and you still can't find a way to make storylines flow from show to show. Like, you have all the tools there. And I'm going to give you another example. So, going with ROH, right? Eddie Kingston, he famously quits AEW.
Yep.
And he goes to ROH to feud with Claudio.
Yep.
Great. They have history. There's a built-in storyline. But guess what? What the fuck happened to Ortiz? Like, you literally just dropped Kingston versus Ortiz, left Ortiz hanging, by the wayside, to, throw Kingston in ROH. And it's like, these things don't make sense, and so now you have Kenny Omega, who's having this fight with Jeff Cobb. And I noticed something that Tony did on Twitter. He made a point to say, hey, watch this great dream match that is a quick deviation from Kenny Omega's storyline that's going on with the Elite and the House of Black and the Blackpool Combat Club and everything. And I said, I noticed, I was like, you know what? You actually did something good. So you actually explained to people that while you're having a dream match, it's a little deviation from an ongoing storyline, because if you don't put that, I automatically assume on the way Tony Khan books, that he's already dropped the storyline after he gives us his dream match and moves Kenny on to something else. So I'm intrigued to see if he's actually going to keep that storyline going, because if it is, potentially, the Blackpool Combat Club, the Elite, House of Black, Dark Order, all those intertwining stories that are conflicting with each other has the potential to really be, and this is even keeping CM Punk and FTR out of the conversation, with how they can blend in. But just with those four groups, you have the potential to have a really great storyline that, if you pull it off, can be great television programming.
Yeah.
But we'll see if it actually gets implemented.
Yeah, I mean, one thing too, Albert, that I want to point out, and by the way, Jason Martinez, thank you for your super chat, because that triggered a really good conversation. But Albert, let me ask you this too, because with AEW, you brought up Proud and Powerful, right? And like, I'm thinking about it, like Proud and Powerful, well, you brought up Ortiz, but in general, Proud and Powerful, obviously we know Santana got injured. Then we get Ortiz and Eddie Kingston, we get the storyline, but then, there's no explanation there, right? Or very little explanation, I should say. But then you fast forward, right? And then, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but Tony Khan tweeted out a video that they hired somebody, a YouTuber, to create a video for them explaining the history between Eddie Kingston and Claudio, right?
Right.
Now, I'm sitting here and I look at ROH and I see 9 to 10, 15 matches that are delivered on ROH tapings. Like, they're doing crazy amount of matches. Can't you do this type of stuff on TV, like, to explain it? Because I know, like, I'm a longtime wrestling fan, but like, not only do they not explain shit, but it's like, oh, cool, like, we're popping for this because we know the history between Claudio and Eddie Kingston. Also, at Blood and Guts, there's a little callback to that. Why are we not getting a lot of content to explain more of this to the general audience? I'm not talking about casual audience. I'm just saying the general audience. Some people could be a fan of AEW and ROH and still not know. It's a history that goes back so many years. So it's like, I always just get frustrated with that, because again, I look at what NXT does, and every week it's like, man, like, they're keeping you in the loop with absolutely everything that's going on. Roxanne Perez, she collapses and all this stuff, and WWE is constantly explaining what's going on. WWE makes it so easy for you. If you miss an episode, they're like, hey, well, this is what you missed. This is why we're here. This is how we got here. And it's just, it's bullshit. It goes back to what we always said in AEW historically. I know Myra's in the chat, and Myra and I, we talked about it last year, but like Penta and Ray Phoenix and just like certain people, they don't get utilized the way we think they should be utilized. Now, somebody might say, well, what makes you think your way makes sense? And it's not even us saying that our way makes sense. It's just, we're fans of certain people in this company, and they don't get utilized, but we've seen them in other companies be utilized better. And whenever you have that comparison, Penta is a perfect example. He was a world champion in Impact, and he was a hell of a world champion. And this guy has not held titles in AEW. He has not held singles titles in AEW.
Yep. And even Ray's had singles title runs too, outside of AEW.
Of course. So it just gets really annoying. I mean, as far as WWE and AEW goes in that comparison, it's just always going to be one of those things where I think AEW, until Tony Khan changes it, it's not going to work, in their favor, honestly. That actually leads to a really good question that Myra just asked in the chat. She says, I'm still wondering if I should get tickets or not. If that's in regards to WrestleMania, that is totally up to you, Myra. WrestleMania, Stand and Deliver, those shows are going to be great. I think those are going to be incredible. Super Card of Honor will obviously be incredible. There's going to be some great matches on that card, but great matches, you know how it is for me. Great matches don't do everything for me. I'll enjoy Super Card of Honor. I've been enjoying ROH. It'll be cool to see Penta and Phoenix go for those tag titles. But what it really comes down to, and I think me and Albert have kind of alluded to this a lot, this week is all about WWE deep down inside. So if you haven't bought your tickets for a WWE event, I mean, I think this is one of WWE's best weekends ever. I think this will be one of the best WrestleManias ever. The only reason why I'm choosing not to go to LA is because I don't want to deal with the travel and the back and forth traveling and the traffic and all that stuff. I'm going to sit in the comfort of my house. I'll live stream. We're going to make some cool content. It'll be fun. Just like last year. You know, we're making it a big deal this year. Angomania, the spectacle, which, by the way, shout out to the OGs, the Cedric Gilmers in the chat, Neglike, Myra, Rick, Albert, you know this firsthand. 2 hours and 50 minutes live streaming. My camera hasn't died. We've made serious progress this year.
Yes, we have. Yes.
we made some serious progress because there was nothing worse than streaming. And I would be like, all right, guys, I got to put a black screen up and talk and then wait till the camera turns back on. It was just so funny. Those were good times. You know what I mean? Like, growth. Oh, Myra just super chatted. Jeez. Myra just dropped a $19.99 super chat. Yeah. LA Knight voice. $19.99. Wow, Myra. That was very nice of you. What you just said, I still think Kittle gives Penta better recognition to Penta than TK. Had to super chat this. No, that's actually true. For those who don't know what she's talking about the guy that plays George Kittle, I think is San Francisco 49ers, right? I'm pretty sure that was his name. But yeah, he's a wide receiver for an NFL team. I'm pretty sure it's the San Francisco 49ers. He goes to the pre-games with the to the pregame with the Penta mask. He's taking pictures with Penta. Me and Myra will continue to talk about this forever and ever and ever. Honestly, Albert, you've been part of these conversations before too. We just think he's massively underutilized, and it's terrible. It's terrible. What do you think about that? What do you think about TK not giving attention to Penta?
No, completely agree. And I mean, I think that from the beginning of AEW, I think, you had Proud and Powerful. You had the Lucha Brothers. You had the Elite. Like, instead of Santana and Ortiz, I get the appeal of being in the inner circle, the faction, having Jericho as the leader, bringing attention. But they never, ever, ever put any fucking emphasis on Proud and Powerful as a legitimate tag team competing for titles. And, I think about how many great feuds we could have had, just singles tag feuds. Lucha Brothers, Proud and Powerful, going back and forth for the titles. The Elite, Butcher and the Blade. Like, the tag division never really has had that deep emphasis that it should have. And then I won't even get into being singles, because I mean, they were barely treated as a great tag team. Seeing them facing Hobbs individually for the title has been great, but we know that Hobbs is going to retain, and yeah, I mean, I remember them in Lucha Underground. I remember them in Impact, in the Indies, having, both of them having, singles titles in Mexico, being treated, great. And, they're just another, group of talent in the company that just at the end of the day has not been treated. Like, at this point, the conversation should be that, Lucha Brothers are like 2 to 3 time tag team champions in the tag division.
They've been
besides the trios.
They've been so underutilized. It's such bullshit, dude. It is such bullshit.
And a lot of the teams, I mean, you look at the Butcher and the Blade, when their music hits and they and the Bunny come out, people actually pop for them. Like, they're heels, but the crowd just loves them so much. They should have a push. FTR should have been pushed as a tag team. Private Party, unfortunately, injuries have kept them away a lot. Same with Top Flight, but these are also teams that should have been competing, for the tag titles. They should have been having, so much emphasis on it. And it's just, it's a laundry list. It truly comes down to where, the Elite, that's who get, a lot of the attention, the Elite, and if you're part of the Elite of AEW, you're on TV on Wednesday and on Friday. Somehow that includes Lethal and Jarrett for some reason, but those are the people that get on. Like, where is Ortiz? There's been no explanation to the feud ending with Kingston. He hasn't even been on Dark. Is he injured? Is he doing indie shows somewhere? Like, that's another thing that just drives me up a wall with A&E. Where's Pac? I see people asking, where's Pac? Is he injured? Is he having visa issues? There's so many little things that Tony Khan can do, and the commentating team can do week to week, little things to inform people that can make things at least go a little bit smoother when the bigger issue of no storyline going little things can at least make things a little bit more palatable, for AEW. And I don't understand why those things just don't happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. You're right on the money. Thank you, Myra, for the super chat, by the way. Again, these super chats are generating tons of great questions. And to kind of bounce back off the Pac thing, I just kind of want to point this out. I think Pac is such a great talent. And it's so funny because I remember so many people had told me, oh, WWE just didn't utilize him the right way. Then he comes to AEW and he becomes All-Atlantic champion. And then what the hell happens? Like, now we got even more question marks about this guy. And the funny thing is, people are like, well, if he didn't work out in WWE and then he didn't work out in AEW, it's probably a him problem. But I just have a hard time agreeing with that because at least WWE put him on TV. At least WWE utilized him. People are in the chat.
Exactly.
People in the chat have literally forgot about Pac being in AEW. They're still asking if he's in AEW. So that just goes to show you there's a lot of people who they've gotten to a point where they just don't know what's going on. And I get it. With injuries and visas and maybe some personal details, it's really hard for a company to publicly say what's going on. Maybe legally they don't want to or they can't, which is fine. But, man, you can explain in some degree in sports, AEW says they're a sport, right? Okay, well, in regular sports, they have injury reports. They have these reports before the game starts, Hey, so-and-so is taking load management. They're taking off the game because they need to rest. This person's ill. This person has injury. AEW and WWE can do the same thing. I see a lot of people will probably disagree with that, but 100% I think you can kind of like an injury report or, hey, like I watch the Detroit Pistons. Why are some people not on TV? It's because they're hurt or they have illness or there's an issue with them, but they disclose it. They don't have to tell you specifics. Sometimes they do, but sometimes, you don't have to give me specifics, but it would be nice to know like, hey, this like this person, like Scorpio Sky, to me, like, I get it. He was injured. That's a long time ago. It feels like a long, long time ago. So it's just this overall issue that I feel like AEW really has to fix that. And, even to a certain extent, I think WWE can benefit from doing that too. I think every company could benefit from saying, hey, listen, and I get it because, they're trying to sell tickets to live events and they're trying to sell tickets to their shows. But at least in WWE, like, they advertise people for the most part. And it's very, very rare where they advertise somebody and don't deliver on somebody. It's very rare. But they're in the business of selling tickets. If Cody Rhodes got injured, which we saw Cody Rhodes get injured, right? But at the end of the day, we knew Cody Rhodes was injured because he wrestled injured. If Cody Rhodes got injured and we didn't see him wrestle injured, right? If we didn't see that big bruise on him and they didn't announce something, people would be pissed because they buy tickets to go see Cody Rhodes. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Michael's asking in the chat, where is Roderick Strong? No update in over 6 months. He is injured. He's injured, should be ready to return soon. At this point, though, he might not be returning to WWE. It's hard to say, but that was what the latest reports were. Albert, it is almost 1 a.m. I've been live. We got 4 minutes left, so I'm not going to keep you here for the last 4 minutes. But before I let you go, is there any other questions or anything you want to talk about?
No, I'll just say, we have a great week of wrestling coming up, and, like you said, a lot of companies are going to be putting on a lot of great shows, but I think that this is definitely about the WWE, but more so because this is the official, Triple H has been in charge for a while, but this is like his big push, after WrestleMania. there is no more, oh, he just took over now, or, this is his, this is going to be his vision going forward. And I'm definitely excited to see what he brings Monday and Friday after WrestleMania, but also, how WrestleMania goes. Because, regardless of whether the company's going to sell or not, Vince is going to keep it or not, while we have Triple H, I'm invested in his vision and how he's going to push the company. So definitely enjoy all the wrestling. Like last year, I was watching indie shows on Twitch, 3 or 4 shows a day, and everything. So enjoy it. But, definitely a great week of wrestling, and always, enjoy talking with you. Anytime, I'm always up for, a good conversation with you, brother.
100%, dude. Albert, you're the man. Thank you for joining me. I'll be live tomorrow night as well. So if you want to join me, just let me know. I'll get you to call in too. Whatever you prefer.
Okay. Definitely, man. Absolutely. Hopefully, AEW is not going to make us have a bad stream. But yeah, definitely, I'll be watching and I'll call in, brother.
Their last few shows have been good, so I'm not too worried about it.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
All right. I'll see you, Albert. Thanks for joining me. Good night.
All right, man. Have a good one, man.
Yep.
Good night.
All right, guys. That was Albert Ponce, longtime VIP member of the channel. Really fun conversation, man. This stream has gone to 3 hours long. We're 2 minutes away. So if you guys have any last minute super chats you want to get in, feel free to do those. Do that now before we get off the air, so that way I can answer your questions. Otherwise, we will end the show in just a few minutes. But yeah, overall, just a really, really fun episode. We had a couple hundred people in here at one point, so that was really cool. Definitely a lot better than I expected for NXT, but NXT was good tonight. We started talking a little bit about some more stuff, which that's kind of the plan going forward on this channel. When I do these live streams, I want to be able to talk about AEW and WWE and everything that's happening. We'll review the show, we'll get off topic, we'll answer the questions, we'll do all of these different things. As that's the plan, right? We're trying to have an interactive show. We're trying to look at the chat. Jacoby, Peter, Negla K, all of you guys, Rick. I mean, seriously, it's great to see you guys in the chat asking questions and doing some stuff. A lot of great things that it makes live streaming easier. Like, time flew by.
Feed me more.
Shout out to Dilchi Obier. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, you guys going off in the chat with great comments and the super chats and everything, it just makes it really fun. And obviously, WrestleMania week is not the end of the live streaming stuff. I enjoy live streaming. My camera doesn't turn off. Everything is fixed. Everything is fun. Everything is interactive. So even after this amazing week, I will be live next week and the week after and the week after. And it's going to be a big summer of Ango. The growth has been incredible. So I appreciate everybody for stopping by. It doesn't look like we got any last minute super chats. Not a big deal whatsoever. Thank you to everybody who dropped a super chat tonight. Thank you to Myra for the big super chat. But everybody who came through. And then, of course, thank you to Albert Ponce again for joining me on call. That was like a last minute decision. That was like a, hey, do you want to join on the call? It was very fun, very eventful. And with that being said, the Ango Show, TAS Live, hashtag that on Twitter. Guys, the audio will also be available on Spotify and Apple Music for those who want to have audio access. With that being said, shout out to all of you, and I will see you guys tomorrow night after AEW Dynamite. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next time.